6:33. I'd like to call this meeting of the Village Board to order. Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll?
Trustee Eater?
Here.
Trustee Enya?
Here.
Trustee Levin-Jacobson?
Here.
Trustee Straw?
Here.
Trustee Taglia?
Here.
Trustee Wesley? And President Skaman.
Here. Okay, thank you. Trustee Enya is participating remotely tonight as he is ill, which is allowable by both our protocol and the governor's order. So if there's hearing no objections, then we'll move forward. Thank you. Entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session. Greg, to do what?
Pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C2 and 2C11 to discuss collective negotiating matters between the village and its employees or their representatives, deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees, and pending litigation against, affecting, or on behalf of the village.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Eater and then second by Trustee Straw. Clerk Waters, can you please take the roll? Or can I say all in favor?
Roll call.
Thank you.
Trustee Eater?
Yes.
Trustee Straw?
Yes.
Trustee Enya?
Yes.
Trustee Levin-Jacobson?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
And President Skaman.
Yes. Okay, thank you. We will be back in about 30 minutes or so. I'd like to reconvene this regular meeting of the Village Board. Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll?
Trustee Eater?
Here.
Trustee Enya?
Here.
Trustee Levin-Jacobson?
Here.
Trustee Straw?
Here.
Trustee Taglia?
Here.
Trustee Wesley?
Here.
And President Skaman.
Here, thank you. And I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as it's been presented.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion by Trustee Taglia and seconded by Trustee Straw. All in favor?
Aye.
Agenda is approved. Minutes, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve minutes from November 11th, 18th, December 2nd, and 9th, regular meetings, and November 20th, special meeting of the Village Board. Motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Trustee Taglia, seconded by Trustee Wesley. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. The minutes have been approved. Do we have any non-agenda public comment this evening?
Yes, we do.
Wonderful. If we can please proceed.
John White?
Hi, good evening. My name is John, and I am a resident of the 1000 block of South Euclid Avenue. We're relatively new residents to Oak Park, my son Jake and I. The reason that I wanted to communicate with the village is my son is rapidly approaching driving age, so he'll be adding a third vehicle to our residence. I, like many of my neighbors, I only have a 2-vehicular garage, if not a singular vehicular garage. On our specific street, overnight parking is not permitted at this time, and that's caused a lot of internal conversations with neighbors about how we're all going to work this out. I spoke with the permitting department earlier today, and they suggested that I speak with the village directly about the issue at this council meeting. I understand it's not on the agenda for this evening, but possibly maybe next Tuesday it could be added to the agenda. I did proactively, as of like 4:30 this afternoon, I did start a petition on our block. I was told that if I reached a petition of at least 75% of the residents, that the board would heavily consider moving to implement the residential parking permits for our block. As of right now, we have 30 households, I should say, on the street, and we've already collected 14 residents that would like to proceed with the permitting. I am just looking for a little bit of guidance whether or not it makes sense for me to continue with the petition or if there's a different process that should be followed.
Okay, so I appreciate that you came in this evening. We don't usually have a dialogue, but you're learning and you're representing quite well, and thank you. And but now that we've all heard it, you can get a response. Is your email on the?
I'm happy to add it.
Okay, all right. then also typically at public comment, the staff helps us with the, appropriate guidance for moving forward.
Okay.
I do appreciate it. Rob, did you have something?
Yes.
Okay, you'll get his information. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
And welcome to Oak Park.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Parking is almost always the first complaint.
Yes, we realize.
Okay. So, thank you.
Cassandra Adetaron.
And hopefully the last.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much. I'm Cassandra Adetaron, Community Relations Coordinator for the Village of Oak Park. Here in Oak Park, we deserve better. As employees, we bring it every single day. Some of us walk to work, and some of us travel 25 miles one way, from the north, south, east, and west, using our expertise, going over and beyond, and taking care of the business of the village. As public servants, we embody the values that the Village of Oak Park expects, and no one has to tell us to do that. When someone comes into the village hall for service, the first person who ushers them in is a union worker. When our residents come in or call for parking services or pay their water bills and other fees, they are serviced by a union worker. Keeping the village aesthetically appealing and safe from natural hazards, done by forestry, union workers. Businesses which bring in revenue to the village could not get through the process without a union worker. Developers, contractors, trade people work directly with union workers for planning and to submit proper documentation and specs. We also have certified employees whose credentials have to be maintained every 2 years. They get it done. This includes the certified employees who inspect the restaurants that your families, our neighbors and friends trust are safe and clean for us to eat in. There are also the certified workers who maintain and inspect the buildings and properties that our families, friends, and neighbors enter into. There are those who maintain the police records, right? Which are vital for law enforcement and public safety union. Workers are doing this. Supporting community development activities through grants and HUD funding, a union worker. Educating, equipping, and empowering tenants, landlords, residents, and sometimes businesses of their rights, remedies, and obligations, done by a union worker. The overarching thing that ties all of this together is what we do collectively, which is we maintain and or improve the quality of life for the people who come in Oak Park, who live, work, and play. All of this is driven and performed by union workers. We want to have a better quality of life as well for our families. We do it here in Oak Park, we need it for ourselves. We've shown time and time again that we know our jobs and we do them well, so much so that people keep coming back to us. We may be considered low on the totem pole, but we are not small people. We matter and we care. And retention of good employees is key. So the next time you're eating in that restaurant or visiting that business or entering into that building and not worried about a safety issue or something falling on your head in the village, remember that it's because we, union workers, are keeping things going. The military taught me that stuff rolls downhill. I have learned that stuff is good and bad. But let the good stuff, in the form of better wages and support, roll downhill to those of us who do our jobs well and beyond. Thank you. Was I supposed to wait? Thank you.
Shay Marshall.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shay Marshall. I'm the director of the State Municipalities Division at Local 73. I'm actually chief negotiator and, for the time being, permanent rep, aside from Mr. Doug, for the units here at the Village of Oak Park. I'm not here to specifically talk about bargaining tonight. I am here to talk about problems that Ms. Cassandra started to go into. Currently, the Village of Oak Park, we represent pretty much everybody who isn't Public Works and isn't police or fire. So everybody in this building, folks that work out in forestry, things like that. Excuse me. We are trying to address as many problems as humanly possible to make this place better. The biggest problem that we face as a union, and that I'm assuming you share as a problem, is retention of employees. Currently, 50% of the workforce that we represent has less than 5 years here at the village. 50%. That is an astronomically high turnover, even in my world. The problem that we've heard straight from officials at the village's mouths is that people come in here, they work a couple of years, get some experience under their belt, and move on to bigger places, better places that pay better. The problem that we have, folks don't make enough money to even live in the village. They don't make enough money to pay rent, to shop, to work. There are people that conduct business for the village that draw in money for the village. There's not enough of them to actually accomplish that. Parking enforcement, for example, inspections, you name it. What we want is for these folks to make a good living wage and to be able to not just take pride in where they work, but where they live. We want them to be here. Many folks, you saw them earlier, they're here tonight representing. Many couldn't be here. They have second jobs. They have childcare issues because they can't afford to pay somebody to do that. They would have been, but they can't. We don't want to have some sort of adversarial relationship with the village. We want to build here. We want these folks to stay. We want these people to serve all of the folks out here. All you. You all live here, you know. These are some of the best folks in the world. And they deserve to be treated that way. And we're asking that you please, we've been bargaining for a year now, and we're not done. We're asking, please, support these folks and support the village. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Nick.
Good evening. I didn't plan on speaking. I was asked by my colleagues to say a thing or two. Those of you that don't know me, my name is Nick Meyer. Not really much of a talker. So the only two things that I wrote down are equity and variables. And I'm not going to preach to you all about equity. I know that we all champion that, and I'm very proud to work for the Village of Oak Park and be an Oak Parker and know that you guys do champion that. So bravo to you. I'm not really too involved with the negotiations, if at all. And the very little that I have heard has been very upsetting. I come from a research background, and when I hear us being compared to other communities from a parity standpoint for salaries, when you take into account the cost of living variabilities that are associated with living in Oak Park, I think in my very limited research, even though it should have been better for this, Berwyn, for instance, median price of or cost of a one-bedroom apartment around $800 a month. Oak Park's about $1,800 a month. If we're comparing ourselves to Berwyn, for instance, at a $65,000 a year income, that should be $80,000 here in Oak Park, all things considered, right? And so I would ask you guys to just be involved in this process now that you're aware of it. I hear we're arguing over a 0.5% at this point, and that's what's keeping people from getting their raises for the past year. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No?
Gotcha. Hello, everyone. My name is Kyle Fortner. I am the Animal Control Officer with the Village of Oak Park. Today, January 13th, marks my one-year anniversary working for the village. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I'm the only animal control officer that the village has successfully retained for 1 year since 2022. I am the 5th animal control officer since 2022. I'm a one-person team covering all village animal complaints. In 2025, I fielded 3,214 phone calls for service, stray dogs, injured and nuisance wildlife, animal bites, animal abandonment, neglect, barking complaints, capturing and transporting rabies samples, and more. And calls for administrative functions, running the rodent abatement program, licensing for the village's more than 1,200 animals, beekeeping inspections, animal facility inspections, adjudication hearings, more. I train the Oak Park Police Department in animal handling and set our police officers up for success. I keep our village in compliance with state-mandated rabies quarantine procedures. My expected take-home pay in 2025 per a 2-week pay period was $1,344. One paycheck from the village is not enough to afford my monthly rent. This position, as well as many other positions within the village, are high workload and low paid, falling well below market averages. Working for the village is not sustainable for me. I urge the board to reconsider how much value our team brings to the village, and if it is a priority to keep staff like me who care about the quality of our mission working for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Appreciate you being here this evening. Any other public comment on any other issue that is non-agenda? Very good. And, okay, so village manager reports. Village Manager Jackson.
Yes, President Skaman, trustee members, just a couple of brief items. I want to start tonight with, we have Public Works Director Rob Sproul here to answer any questions that you might have about this year's fall leaf collection program. The reason why we're making ourselves available to answer any questions is because we've received, some inquiries about this year's fall leaf collection. We know that we had unusual snowfall in November, a late leaf drop. Nonetheless, we successfully completed the fall leaf collection program this year, despite those unusual circumstances. But we recognize that there are some conditions that we've seen in the community where we've received some feedback, and we just want to make sure that you guys are informed about kind of everything that took place in the leaf collection program this year, and that you have the opportunity to answer any questions. Now, we did share a memo with you this afternoon highlighting our perspective on the fall leaf collection program this year, but we just wanted to provide the opportunity for any of you to ask any questions if you had them. If you do not have any questions, we're okay with that too, but if you do, we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so this is separate than the agenda items that we have on regular agenda.
Yes, we do. We do. We have yes.
Yeah.
This is separate from the agenda item. I think the later agenda item is not exclusively about fall leaf collection, but related.
Okay, and so if we do have anybody who is looking to speak at that time for that agenda item, do we? That would have been for K? Maybe J or K? We have one. Ingo, would you like to share your public comment now so that as we review that, we can take that into consideration?
Right, I can tie in with Kay, and we can think about that later. There's a couple of things that are in Kay, we're talking about renewing our friends at LRS. There's a
Okay.
couple things there too.
Well, then you can go home and watch us from TV if you'd
Sounds
like.
perfect. As you all know, and I've written you numerous letters, the leaves are everywhere. And it's dangerous, it's unsightly. We worry about how well and how nice Oak Park looks, and it looks like crap. And our sewers are getting plugged. There's water in front of my house. I keep the sewers clean, but it's going down the sewers, and there's nothing I can do about it. So it's going to cost us a bunch of money to clean that up. So I don't understand why we can't do a better job of this. Old people like myself have a tough time. My wife and I spend a lot of hours out there picking up leaves. We live on a corner. So we have 5 trees by the time we're through, besides what blows in from all over. I usually hope for an eastbound wind, because that way I don't have to clean up as much. So I'm hoping LRS, we can figure out a better way to do this, but preferably maybe with somebody else. And let me do my couple things on LRS. When LRS first started, they had this beautiful machine that comes and picks up your garbage can. And with that beautiful machine, they put a nice hole in my garage. And when I confronted them about it, well, we have a video of our people, and we didn't do it. I says, well, I'd like to see those videos. Well, all of a sudden, those videos disappeared. So then I was told, well, we looked on Google Earth, and we saw that we didn't do it. If any of you have looked on Google Earth, look at Google Earth. Ultimately, because I had to have the siding custom made, cost me $1,000. What I got from LRS was. So the other thing too is the LRS guys just love to use their highway horn coming out of the alley. Now, as if you can't hear a garbage truck coming out of the alley, give me a break. But they use their highway horn. So I confronted LRS with it, and I said, look it, guys, we have enough noise in this village. We don't need a highway horn coming out of the alley. Oh, it's state law that we have to use our highway horn. Look up state law. It's against the law to honk at the alley. Then comes our little dumper, which comes and dumps all of the beautiful stuff, and a percentage of it is all over my lot, because I'm on the corner. That's where they dump. So as it goes up, the paper flows all over the place, and I spend about a half an hour picking up after them. They don't care. I've asked the guy, I said, well, please get out and pick up the stuff. Well, I'll get fired if I pick up the stuff. So where are we at? They don't care about us. Why should we care about them? When it comes to the contract, let's look for somebody else. Money isn't everything. I mean, I obviously don't want to pay a lot more money, but I also don't want the aggravation, and I'm sure there are hundreds and hundreds of other people who are aggravated with this too. If you really put it out and ask, my neighbors are upset, a lot of people are upset. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on leaves on the street? Okay, so we'll focus right now on the cleaning up of the leaves on the street and the circumstances that we experienced this year, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the intent of the memo that was put out was not an evaluation of the transition away from the historic leaf model to the new model. It was an acknowledgement of the very unusual conditions that persisted with the weather this year, and how Public Works, along with the residents and our partners in LRS, have responded to that situation and continue to respond to this day. We know that they were very unusual conditions. We were facing the snowiest November in recorded history. We received another 7 inches of snow over the next 2 weeks following that single event. We were in below freezing conditions for a significant period of time up towards Christmas. We have tried to do whatever we can in terms of street sweeping, and then in terms of pickup, LRS, even before this happened, had offered to extend the program because of the timeline change, and they've made a commitment actually to continue to pick up bagged leaves in the alley free of charge through the end of March. So I think we just wanted to acknowledge all the work that's gone into trying to clean the streets, and that work continues today, even with 12-hour shifts with our internal street sweeping vehicles. But we know that it's an unusual condition, and we just wanted to give the board the opportunity to ask any questions they have about what's going on. But I think probably the thing that drove it the most is there seems to be this perspective that the conditions that occurred this year are related to the transition that happened last year. I know I've been asked by a member of the board as well as some members of the public, and people have opinions about that. And I guess, it's articulated in the report, but I would just say that while the season was demanding, the village's current leaf model prevented a far more serious operational and safety issue than had we stayed with the historic model in the conditions that we faced this year. This is not a unique condition to Oak Park, and communities that continue to pile their leaves in the street faced far more challenging issues with the cleanup of that material following the storm event than what we're facing now. So that's my opinion of it, but we're happy to kind of just, answer any other questions that the board may have, but we know that this is a lingering issue and we wanted to provide some perspective on it.
Okay, so for those residents who still have, leaves in front of their homes that is making it less attractive than they'd like to see at this time, they can still bag those right now and they can leave them by their and they'll be picked up.
Yep. Yeah, free of charge. We still have bags available at all of our facilities as well, free of charge. But yeah, anybody that wants to continue to bag can bag those leaves. They can put them in the alley. If it's too challenging to put them in the alley and they call us, we'll pick them up at the curb. But if they end up in the alley, LRS will pick them up free of charge during our winter composting schedule, which operates on a biweekly schedule. So they may sit for a short period of time for the LRS truck to come, but they'll be picked up, without charge.
Brian?
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding why communities that used a curbside model would have been worse hit. Is it fair to say that if leaves had been raked into the street and then the snow fell on top, then it either would have impaired plowing operations or the plow would have been dumping those leaves right back onto residents' yards, which was something that wasn't happening with our model because they were bagged and as a result were still able to be collected?
I wouldn't say it wasn't happening. It still happened, right? Because of the quick turnaround that happened with our heaviest leaf week being Thanksgiving week and then that snow happening on Saturday, there were still properties and streets that had leaves. But yes, if we had been encouraging people to push all of those leaves into the street, those leaves would have either frozen into the road surface as part of that snow and storm event, or what we would have been scraped up and plowed back into people's yards as part of the plow cleanup. So while we still face cleanup issues associated with the unique circumstances of the storm, the communities that still were using that historic model faced much larger challenges.
And is there a plan to further communicate that if people do still have leaves that need to go to the alley, how are we getting that word out to residents?
Yeah, so we've been doing, we've updated, I believe, our website to reflect that information. We've been starting to push it out on social media, and then as we hear complaints that or concerns from residents, we've been addressing it that way when people have been calling asking what they can do with their leaves. So yeah, we've been kind of just trying to get that information out there as part of our normal channels.
Excellent, thank you.
Jenna?
Thank you for the update and for fielding all of those questions and complaints. Aside from the aesthetic concerns that people have brought up, it's also been what our public commenter and some of the emails we get are concerns around clogging the drains. Will the village ever consider like an official recommendation of what to do? Because every heavy rain, we debate with each other, clear the leaves, leave the leaves, specifically around, the sewers. So I'm just curious about that, if we could maybe like have a standard response, or if there's not.
No, there is. So there's a couple of different approaches with it. One, regardless of the circumstances, there's always detritus in the street, right? And so there's an opportunity, whether it's summer, fall, or winter, that drains get clogged during significant rain events. It is not the worst thing in the world to allow that water to remain in the street as long as the road is passable. It is a great reservoir to hold that excess material and make sure that the system below ground doesn't get overcharged. Because when the system below ground gets overcharged, the possibility is that houses back up. So we do actually discourage people, unless the road is so impassable that can remain in that condition during the storm event. And then typically we send out staff at the end of an event to start to clear drains and open things back up to allow those to recede into the sewer. So, I mean, except in extreme events, it's not, it's 6 of one or half dozen of the other. But when we're receiving 1 inch or 2 inch rains, unless the road is impassable and there's an issue, it's not a problem to allow the street to act as a reservoir to hold that water temporarily until after a storm event.
Is that like our official? Is that our line? Is that our official recommendation?
That would be our official
Okay.
recommendation.
Does that live somewhere where we can point? I know it's.
It's not something that we necessarily. I guess we could try to do a better job, I guess, of promoting that specifically. But it is in all of our stormwater management recommendations that the streets act as our largest reservoir in the community, and allowing water to sit on the street does not increase the likelihood that your basement will flood unless it is flooding so significantly that it has now come over the curb, is starting to approach the properties, which again takes hundreds of thousands of gallons of water to get to that point. You're much more likely to see a sewer backup occur rather than kind of like overland flooding into your basement in those circumstances. So,
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Jim?
So I acknowledge the historic nature of November. It was a bad month. And I appreciate Public Works' efforts in keeping everything up after the fact, trying to go after people would call and you would be responsive, and that's very important and appreciated. However, I will say that I do see a level of, I think you called it detritus or detritus?
detritus?
Detritus in our village that I've never seen in 60 years. So I do think it's an important thing to acknowledge that in my view, when you talk about leaving water in the street, I don't think I can't imagine that's a good thing for cars to drive on and drive through. And when it freezes, we have a pond that becomes an ice skating rink, and that's not good for anything. So I understand your recommendation, and I appreciate it. I don't see the value in not using a sewer for what it was intended and keeping those gutters clean. And the thing is, with this new process, and I don't want to get into that really because it's not the subject, but when you don't clear the curbs, that material just sits there, and eventually it'll plug the sewers. And it's unsightly, of course, but it really keeps the water from flowing. And I'm constantly trying to keep mine from flooding onto the parkway, and I do get it all the way up to my sidewalk. So I do appreciate everything that was done, and I understand. We still have time to discuss this later, and also time in our contract too to look at options and consider options. But I do think that removing that material, and we talked about it briefly, about it being a shared obligation. When there's material in the street, I never used to have to go out and clean it up in the curb. I shouldn't have to do that. They would clear all the way and clear all the material out. It's not my job, but I mean, you mentioned that it was a kind of a shared responsibility of the homeowner and the village. Maybe it is now, but it never used to be, and I prefer it to stay the way it was.
Well, I guess I would just say, I think in our conversation, I just said that there's no ordinance identifying who's responsible for that. And so if there's no ordinance mandating the resident, we can't ticket a resident if there's leaves in their curb. And so we have a street sweeping program that manages those curbs on a monthly basis. And we have increased that level of service associated with this year.
Right.
I would say that the challenges associated with clearing the curbs this year are more tied to the extreme temperatures and the way that those leaves have frozen to the curb, rather than just their existence. We didn't experience the same issues last year. I think I understand your position on kind of the cleanliness of the parkways, and people's decisions about whether or not they choose to clear them. But I don't think we experienced the same sort of circumstances last year with the LEAF program as we did this year in
Right.
terms of follow-up cleanup after the completion of the program. And I think that's more tied to, I believe it's tied more to the weather and the circumstances around that rather than the transition itself.
Yeah, and I'm not specifically pointing at the transition. I'm just saying that in past years, those curbs were clean at the end of the day, for the most part.
Yeah.
They did a little cleanup in the spring, but those sweepers can't take in a foot of muck for blocks and blocks. They can't do it. They're not designed to do that.
They're not designed to do it, yeah.
So there's where we are, and that's the situation we're facing at the moment, and we may face it again. We'll see, but I hope not. And it's a concern because it plugs the sewers and it makes a mess. And I mean, it's all the way everywhere, and it's a concern. I don't want to see frozen ponding on the streets, and I don't want to see water sitting on them. I don't think that's safe. Cars driving through where it literally is from side to side on the street. That's just not, I don't get that. So I appreciate your efforts, though, and you've been on it as much as you can, and all of Public Works, and I see the sweepers, but I have concerns. Thank you.
Okay, so what does the increase in street cleanup look like right now? And when would that, and for like the next 30, 60 days, what does that look like?
Yeah, so it's a concurrence of a lot of circumstances. So if you read the report, weather conditions approximately December 18th allowed us to activate street sweeping services through about December 26th. During that time, we were able to convince our street sweeping contractor to come in town. He activated 9 sweepers in addition to our 2 sweepers, and we collected a significant amount of debris during that period before temperatures dropped again. And at that time, along with the end of the year, we were actually in between contractors, right? So we've moved from our existing contractor to a new contractor based on our bidding process. Our new contractor has already committed to coming in as early as February once temperatures warm up to continue street sweeping. In the meantime, every time weather conditions allow, we've been utilizing our large sweeper and then our small sweeper to continue to focus on cleaning our streets. We've done a lot of our mains as well as working on our secondaries, which are our east-west streets. And then we will start to move into the north-south residential streets to continue to clean. So it's a continued and active process, and we hope that along with the encouragement and the availability for residents to bag leaves that are in their parkway and place them in the alley free of charge, that we will kind of continue to improve the condition over the course of the winter.
So it does seem like maybe some additional advertisement of that program is extended through to March would be good.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. Derek, I'm sorry.
Thank you for the memo. Appreciate it. I'm relatively new to the LEAF conversation, so here's the party. I think Trustee Tagula's comments kind of reminded me, noting that hadn't seen something like this in the 60-odd years you've been in the village. I think about, climate change. This is a pretty obvious example of the impacts of climate change. We're seeing a longer summer and leading into a later winter. I think in the memo you mentioned the leaves dropped later than expected. That is something that is documented to be known as like an effect of climate change. And then also more extreme weather events, right? We had this very extreme and sudden, like cold snap and snowstorm that happened that caused the conditions that you described that were in this memo described as kind of unprecedented. And I think the scary thing to acknowledge though is that it's no longer unprecedented. It's probably going to happen again. It's probably going to get worse. And so, sorry for the bad prognosis, but that's what the science says. So I guess given that, I just want to acknowledge that is what's happening here. And given that, is there anything we can do to better prepare for future events like this? Because I think we, frankly, as stewards of this process, should consider that and plan ahead as much as possible.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up, Trustee Eater. That is part of the conversation that we were kind of planning on having later this evening with LRS as part of a potential renewal to their agreement. But we do have some suggestions that we were going to be perhaps bringing to them. And while we can't control the weather and we can't control the leaves falling, we always try to make our best guess. And we thought we made a good guess based on the drought that we were kind of experiencing, that it was going to be an early fall. We guessed wrong. But I think we are going to probably be exploring with LRS the potential to expand the length of the existing program from 6 weeks into a longer time horizon to provide a wider window for residents to dispose of those leaves during the fall. And I think also looking at the potential to continue this possibility of collection through the winter, whether that's on the street or at the curb. So just trying to increase the capacity of the program and evaluating, what that would potentially cost or maybe not cost as part of a renewal. And so, I think that's really kind of the only way we can kind of look at how we continue to better address that, is just create more options for a longer period of time for residents to deal with these issues.
Okay, great. I look forward to that conversation.
Okay, so I think the street part is good, right? I will say that I did hear from some of my mayoral colleagues that they had extreme challenges with this season, whether they had the the leaf in the street program or leaf pickup like we did. So, in fact, I had folks thinking that maybe ours was better. Anyway, so we'll see. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Right, thanks, Rob. Okay, I think the next one and final one is a quick one.
Okay.
Oh, it's a new staff introduction. Just want to take a moment to introduce the new Chief Financial Officer, Kevin Way. So Kevin, you can come up to the podium and share a little bit about introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So as Village Manager mentioned, my name is Kevin Buesa, and I'm honored to be here to serve as the CFO for the Village of Oak Park. I have over 15 years of experience in finance. My prior 3 roles have been CFOs or finance director in Lake County with the RTA, my most recent position. I was there for about 3 years, and prior to that, I was with McHenry County as a CFO for 3 years. And then I won't go through the whole history because I know the meeting will go for a bit of time, but just honored to be here. The Village of Oak Park has earned a reputation of being very community-driven, transparency being key, and finance is a great department function to demonstrate that transparency. And in my career, I've done a lot of that transparency portals and operations in that way, and this is my day number 2, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. So again, I appreciate, don't ask me for names or a lot of that just yet, but looking forward to working with the board, the village manager, the department heads, and the staff here to improve improve on what's already been built here. So just a side note, I was, and I mentioned this during the interview process, but I was born and raised in Honduras, and I learned English at Dominican University. So during that time, I would volunteer at the Hemingway Museum to just get practicing that English, and everybody was so kind. So it's kind of full circle coming back here. And again, I just appreciate the opportunity and looking forward to working with everybody. So thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. That's it.
All right. And so moving on from the village manager's report, village board committees. Anyone have anything in the immediate to share? Happy New Year to all. So I think next time we'll probably all be doing our rounds. Citizen Commission vacancies. Anyone interested in serving on a board, village board commission, please reach out to Clerk Waters at clerk@oak-park.us. And now, we have a public hearing. Okay. So I can go straight to my script. There we go. Welcome to the public hearing on the question of the Village of Oak Park acquiring the property at 11 Madison Street by eminent domain using quick take powers. And I'll turn it over to Village Attorney Greg Smith to describe the notices given for this hearing.
Thank you, President Skaman. Notice of the public hearing was both mailed to the owner of the property and published in the Wednesday Journal newspaper as required by the rules of the Illinois General Assembly. The hearing notice and agenda for this meeting both stated the means by which persons may provide public comment.
Thank you. And now we'll turn it over to Village Manager Jackson.
Okay, thank you, President Skaman. So this hearing relates to the village's acquisition of the U.S. Bank property at the corner of Madison Street and Austin Boulevard, specifically for to build a new police station. Village Attorney Smith will provide the additional background on the item. Thank you.
The village board selected the property at 3 to 31 Madison Street and 509 South Humphrey Avenue, commonly known as 11 Madison Street, as the location for a new police station. The village has been unable to reach terms for a voluntary sale with the owner of that property. On November 11, 2025, the village board approved ordinance number 25-207, in which it authorized acquisition of the property through eminent domain proceedings. In order to proceed with development of the new facility in a timely manner, the village intends to request the Illinois General Assembly approve legislation authorizing the village to acquire the property by eminent domain using quick take powers under the Illinois Eminent Domain Act. The General Assembly requires the village to give notice and hold a public hearing before votes are taken on legislation granting the village quick take powers for this purpose. The purpose of this hearing is to offer the public an opportunity to comment on the village's plan to request the General Assembly granted quick take powers to acquire the property. The village board's consent agenda this evening includes a resolution formally requesting the General Assembly grant the village those quick take powers to allow it to acquire the property and the project to proceed as planned. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do the trustees have any comments or questions regarding this matter? Okay. Christina, has anyone signed up for public comment concerning this item?
Yes.
Thank you.
Chris?
Hello, Mr. Donovan. Happy New Year.
Good evening. It wouldn't be a public comment without a handout. So, here you go. I fully support the use of eminent domain to capture that building because the adaptive reuse, I think, would save the village a lot of money. What I have to say tonight may not hold up in a court of law in terms of the arguments for the quick take petition. However, I think what I'm handing out will make your decision to go forward a little further. The reason I say that is because when you look at Park or the U.S. Bank's facility there, they came into town on the heels of the federal takeover of Park National Bank, which had a stellar history of community investment. Not so much U.S. Bank. Now, one of the things that I point out is in this handout, you'll see that the first page is dated March 4th, 2011. That was 15 years ago. At that time, U.S. Bank, with a coalition of community activists on the west side and further into the suburbs in Maywood, signed a community benefits agreement with U.S. Bank, the specifics of which are highlighted below. In 15 years, I do not think you could find an argument that U.S. Bank lived up to those commitments. And what has happened instead, I believe, is that U.S. Bank has been disinvesting from communities. And the four banks, or the four structures here in Oak Park, is similar to that. But the hundreds, perhaps thousands of vacant houses that are still left from the foreclosure process that U.S. Bank was involved, they're still out there. Second page, you'll see something from the Chicago Rehab Network, which lists the assignment lenders with 150 more foreclosures in 2009. Number 3 is US Bank with 1,383. I didn't give it to you, but if you look at the Village of Maywood, between new and existing cases filed and heard in 2009 in Cook County Circuit Court, it makes nearly 5% of that 1,300. So that's a lot in one community. But when this was brought to US Bank's attention by the coalition for, that came up with the Community Benefits Agreement, US and others, US Bank came out with this last page, which is their role as a trustee. And that they say they have no idea about the foreclosures. But if you've ever looked at a mortgage-backed security document, you'll see that reporting by the servicers about the number of loans in default and which loans in default is part of that reporting requirement. What happens is the US Bank didn't enforce those service agreements, so therefore the servicers let these properties rot and lose their value, which not only affected the community, but the investors in those mortgage-backed securities, including retirement funds, municipal funds, and stuff of that nature. So they say they have no knowledge of the foreclosures or the condition of those properties. That is completely untrue. So, knowing that their track record is what it is, I hope you see them for the bad guys I see them as, and go forward with your the decision tonight to pursue this post haste. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for continuing to make my argument for me. Okay. Any other public comment on this?
None other than the email that was sent from Mrs.
Levy? I was just searching US Bank to see if I could find it, but how do we spell Levy? L-E-A-V-Y. Okay, thank you. Jacqueline. Like most longtime residents of the village, I've tried to keep up with the discussions and proposals for a new police station, hoping that as a community we can find a solution that would not put another burden on already stressed taxpayers. I strongly urge you to move on the opportunity to acquire and adapt the soon-to-be abandoned US Bank site on Madison and Austin. This is clearly the most logical, convenient, creative, and cost-effective solution to the space needs of our police department. I am just one of the growing number of enthusiastic supporters of the idea to utilize eminent domain to acquire the properties in question. Developing adequate facilities for our police force is a high priority for our community and long overdue one. Eminent domain will accelerate the process and keep acquisition costs affordable. US Bank has gradually withdrawn from Oak Park after the past 12 years, reflecting a waning in commitment to local customers. It also has a checkered history of lackluster investment in local development and banking services for our neighbors in Chicago, Maywood, and our own village. In light of US Bank's track record, you should have no qualms with using the eminent domain tool in this case. Indeed, your decisive and swift action will ensure that the site becomes productive as soon as possible after the bank pulls out, and for a purpose that we can all welcome. I was one of the early members of the Coalition for Community Banking that came together to object to US Bank's takeover of Park National Banking. I am keenly aware that Chicagoans, Oak Parkers, and our other West suburban neighbors and allies had to advocate strenuously to keep US Bank from bailing out all of us at the time. We had scores of meetings with US Bank officials and Congressman Danny Davis in order to extract a commitment that some semblance of community banking practices and continuing operation of local branches would continue. That campaign succeeded to a degree initially. But now Oak Park is about to lose the last 2 branches of US Bank in our village, ensuring that the soon-to-be vacant property on Madison and Austin, one of the key gateways to our community, does not sit empty, but instead is repurposed to serve all of us, would be a fitting and positive outcome with broad public benefit. Please take this stance to accomplish this acquisition and finally resolve the pressing space and facility issues that our police department has struggled with far too long and with a price tag that residents and taxpayers can afford. Thank you. Jacqueline Levy. Okay, please.
President Skaman, members of the Village of Board of Trustees. My name is Abdel Deglawi, and I am the branch and market leader for U.S. Bank in the state of Illinois. I am proud to have served the Chicagoland area throughout my banking career, including 13 years with U.S. Bank. And during that time, I've had the privilege of working right here in Oak Park community from 2012 to 2019. Thank you for this opportunity to comment on the negative impact to our customers that will result from the village's decision to take our local Oak Park branch via quick take eminent domain, which is unquestionably the most aggressive and risky method of taking private property against the will of a property owner. This evening, you have a choice to vote to approve or disapprove the use of quick take, and U.S. Bank respectfully requests that you vote to disapprove the use of this method in this case. U.S. Bank has proudly served customers at 11 West Madison Street in Oak Park since 2009. We have helped children open their first accounts. We have helped small businesses obtain capital to start and expand their businesses. We have helped people get their first mortgage, their first car loan, and their first retirement accounts. We have never had plans to leave this location. And to set the record straight, last year, we never listed our property on the private market to sell it so we can leave Oak Park. Rather, we offered to sell the property on the private market under the clear and unequivocal condition that the buyer lease back the bank branch to U.S. Bank. We included this requirement because U.S. Bank is committed to Oak Park and our customers at this location. We do not want to leave or be forced to leave, and we are very disappointed with the village's decision to take the bank's property and force us to leave this location. The village's actions will negatively impact our ability to serve residents and business owners in Oak Park, something we do every day. Due to the village's decision to take our property, we are exploring options for a new location in Oak Park or the surrounding area. However, that process will take time. The village's quick take seizure of the property means that we will certainly be forced out and have to vacate the property before we are able to find, construct, and open a new location to serve our customers. As a courtesy, I've included my written comments to you, a copy of the letter U.S. Bank has sent yesterday to our clients and our local customers, informing them of the village's legal action and the likely closure of their bank branch. U.S. Bank respectfully requests that you vote to disapprove the use of quick take in this case. Thank you for your time.
Okay, I want to double check to make sure that we don't have any additional public comment in person or on Zoom. Is there anyone looking to make public comment for this hearing? Okay. And if there's no further comment from the trustees, all persons who wish to be heard have been given an opportunity to do so. I will now ask for a motion and a second to adjourn the public hearing.
So moved.
Second. Second.
Okay, motion by Trustee Taglier and seconded by Trustee Wesley. Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll?
Trustee Taglier?
Yes.
Trustee Wesley?
Yes.
Trustee Eater?
Yes.
Trustee Enya? Trustee Enya? Trustee Loving-Jacobson?
Yes.
Trustee Straw?
Yes.
President Skaman?
Yes. Okay, thank you. The public hearing is now closed. And we will move forward to the regular agenda. Consent agenda is up next. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as it's been presented.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Clerk Waters, would you please? That was motion by Trustee Loving-Jacobson and seconded by Trustee Eater. Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll? Or all in favor? Oh. Came back into motion, so thanks.
Trustee Loving-Jacobson?
Yes.
Trustee Taglier?
Yes.
Trustee Eater?
Yes.
Trustee Enya?
Yes.
Trustee Straw?
Yes.
Trustee Wesley?
Yes.
President Skaman?
Yes. Okay, thank you. The consent agenda has been approved. Moving forward to regular agenda. First, we have a motion to approve an updated organizational chart for the clerk's office, including the creation of a part-time file clerk position, and directing staff to prepare the necessary budget amendment. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by trustee Leving Jacobson and seconded by trustee Enya. We guess we can turn it over to village manager or just straight to
Sure,
Clerk Waters?
I can introduce Clerk Waters will provide some background information on this request.
Thank you.
Thank you, Village Manager Jackson. Christina Waters, Village Clerk.
Okay, is the microphone on?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So this comes as a request because the records management is transferring to the clerk's office as of fiscal year 2026. This is going to include physical and electronic records, the archival processing, digitization prep, and statutory compliance. The clerk's office is currently at a 2.5 FTE, which just is not sufficient for this expanded scope. And so the file clerk would handle core, hand-on records work that cannot be absorbed by the existing staff.
Okay, do we have any questions?
So this was brought up at the, I think it was the second last meeting of the year. So I just wanted to check. It sounds like it's the same thing I heard then. So I just wanted to confirm that that's the case here.
That's correct.
Okay, I'm fine with this as is. I have no questions if that's the case.
Any other questions?
I just have a quick one. So what has to be done with the archives exactly to archive this, your archiving material?
So there's a couple of things that have to be done currently. Right now, some of our books, those books that are from like 1902 to current day, suppose, those 1902 books have to be handled very differently. The 1902 to 1940, ideally we would love to partner with the Oak Park Public Library and have those placed in their archive room. The books from 1941 until today will stay with the clerk's office. In addition to that, we really are looking to complete the digitization process this year. It's been in the budget. It was budgeted last year. We actually sent out the RFP, but what we got back was pretty expensive. And so we really wanted to take a creative look at how can we partner with the library, how can we decrease cost. The other thing is that this isn't just the clerk's files. We really want to start to look at how can we help in the management of all of the records throughout the Village of Oak Park and the entire organization.
Yeah, I thought archiving was you box them up and send them somewhere and they do it. Do they not, or is it?
So we do have Iron Mountain, who we will house some of our documents off-site. They do come, and sometimes they box them up. But a lot of times we box them up. Also, there's certificates that have to be completed. There's time sensitivity to some of our records that have to be disposed of according to state law. And so we really want to get into a cadence just overall as an organization, and the clerk's office just wants to help with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions? Okay. The Clerk Waters, if you'll please take the roll.
Trustee Leving Jacobson?
Yes.
Trustee Enya?
Yes.
Trustee Eater?
Yes.
Trustee Straw?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Wesley?
Yes.
And President Skaman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so now we're moving to item H, which is a resolution approving a purchase and subscription agreement with Granicus LLC for Government Experience Service Cloud, Granicus Operations Cloud, Communications Cloud, Advanced Package, Government Experience Agent, Boards and Commissions, and AzureAD Connector License through a master agreement secured by OMNIA Partners for a term of 5 years, an amount not to exceed $179,489.65 annually, authorizing its execution and waiving the village's bid process for the agreement. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by trustee Wesley and seconded by trustee Eater. Village Manager Jackson.
Yes, President Skaman, trustee members, this is a follow-up to a conversation we had with the board on December 2nd, just before we close out the budget for FY26. We provided some details regarding the proposed additional services offered by Granicus, and then also we promised to follow up on questions that were raised at that time. We subsequently provided a memo to you all on those questions, and I also offered an opportunity to meet with you as needed, or talk with you as needed, to further address those questions. So here we are today, the first meeting of the year, following up as we thought we would, to make this recommendation to expand the services with Granicus to support additional customer service efforts of the village in summary. So I'm going to turn over to Dan, Chief Communications Officer, to further amplify what the recommendation is.
Thank you, Manager Jackson. Dan Yopchik, Chief Communications Officer. Also joining us remotely this evening on Zoom is Kim Steelman, who was here in person back in December from Granicus, and Wasson Sitman, who is another colleague of Kim's from Granicus. They'll be available to answer any questions that may arise as well. As Manager Jackson said, just a bit of a refresher, we're looking to expand a little bit of what we're doing with Granicus in a couple different ways. One is migrating a lot of the current products that we already use, such as our website, our agenda creation software, our e-newsletter delivery service, kind of into this cloud system, which is going to provide us with some additional value in the form of service credits with Granicus, a government experience partner who's kind of designed to be a consultant that really will walk us through, from implementation to year 5 of how to best use and maximize and get the best value we can out of these products. And then the enhanced service levels. So if we do run into issues and we do have problems that arise, we're going to have a little bit more priority in terms of having those resolved by Granicus. Then the additional part of the agreement as well is a new component that we're looking into, which is the government experience agent. That's what we probably talked the most about on December 2nd, when a lot of the questions were about. That is really the AI chatbot feature that we're looking to implement that will help, that we're looking to help really improve on dependability, response times. It's available 24/7 when our call center is not available, and I think it will also improve our web search functionality. That's something that we have the ability to provide input to. So in the 6 or 8 week implementation process, should that component be approved, we're going to be working closely with Granicus, with our Civic Information Systems Commission, to really kind of fine tune what we want those responses to look like. We're able to also, as we discussed last month, really kind of direct it to external sources if needed, right? So if someone comes and says, I want to get a library card, we're able to let it, we're able to direct it to the Oak Park Public Library card or Public Library page where there is that information that may not be found on the village page. So that's kind of just the quick recap. And as I mentioned myself, Kim and Wasson are available for any questions that you may have.
Any questions?
Hey, Dan, no questions. I did just want to point out that I did do some testing based on the information that was provided at the last meeting, and I found the AI chatbot to be pretty helpful. I think I tested one. Was it Jacksonville?
Jackson County.
Jackson County. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And yeah, it was good. I tried to break it. I couldn't, which is good because I've been able to break practically every other AI. So I did find that to be pretty successful. And the information that I got from it was also pretty good. It was able to route me around to things that I had absolutely no idea about Jackson County, but it was able to surface that information for me. So I know a lot more about Jackson County than I did before I started. Right. So I think this would be a boon for our village, especially for folks who find it difficult to find things on our website because it is quite dense, right? There's a lot of information there, and most of the time folks bounce off of it, and then they just ask me. And it'd be nice if they could ask the chatbot and then ask me when the chatbot doesn't help. Right. So.
So we've most of our conversation around this has centered around the sort of the AI chatbot elements. The proposal is, it appears, an increase of about $70,000, give or take, in the annual amount from, I think currently it's like 89,000 to first year is 162,000, subsequent years ranging from 155 to 180 as we go through 2030. So, what is the additional stuff we're getting on top of the AI and a devoted customer service, like where we have more expedited customer service?
Yeah, and I'll begin to answer this, but Kim and Watson, feel free to hop on at the end if there's anything that I missed. But I really think that the service credits are really important because that's going to allow us across all of our Granicus products to really put those credits toward improving kind of what we're doing already or maybe building anew. So for example, I think the example we gave last time, or if I didn't, I was thinking about it and I should have, was when we were talking about kind of creating a little bit different looking page for our immigration resources, right? So what we did this fall was really create something based on our own, kind of capabilities within the current framework of the site. We'd have the ability to kind of go to our partners in Granicus and say, we want to use some of our service hours for you to be able to create something that's a little bit more robust, a little bit more, a little different than our kind of standard municipal site. So we'd be able to use those credits to have them do that. So I think there's, there's kind of some cost efficiency in that because it helps us avoid kind of things that we maybe didn't plan for, right? So in January of 2025, I don't think anyone necessarily anticipated that in September we would be standing up that site. So if anything like that arises now, we'd kind of be in position to do that. And I think the other kind of those added value pieces that we would really get a great benefit from is that government experience partner. So that person is going to be able to kind of, one, be proactive. And if they see something that's in Jackson County or any other kind of municipalities that they work with that, hey, they're doing this and we think you should try that because you're a similar community or you're facing similar challenges, they're going to be able to do that. They're also going to be able to sort of act as a navigator to point us to the right person to help us with some of the issues. In a lot of the different products, we work with different people if something goes wrong, if we're looking to build something new. So they're kind of serving as that navigator piece. And then I think really they're just going to be proactive, right? So now I think everything that we're doing with Granicus is very reactive. Like we see a problem, we reach out to them and ask them how to fix it, whereas that partner is going to be kind of holding our hand through everything and showing us kind of the path to the light. Anything else, Kim or Watson, to that end?
For mine, I think you covered it pretty well. I think, like you said, that government experience partner, having that proactive kind of consultant level support. And then those service credits are really meant to be flexible so that they can be used on a variety of things that to fit your all's need without having to come and ask for additional funds every time you need another set of hands on maybe some specific training or building out campaigns or, these specific more custom initiatives that you might need some additional support on. You'll have more flexibility in pulling us in and kind of increasing that bandwidth as well. Wasson, do you have anything to add there?
I think you covered most of it. I would say about that experienced partner is that they would be, like Dan said, proactive, where they will meet with you on a regular cadence to find out what's the next initiative for the village, and then help you along with that and get creative on what other municipalities are doing to accomplish those initiatives across our 5,000 customers. So it's really to help you be proactive and be ahead of the curve.
So the additional value we're getting is that we have a point person, a name and a face who we talk to as our liaison, that government experience partner. We have faster tech support, and we have essentially a funded pot of credit hours that we can use to redeem other things. So it's just we're sort of prepaying for additional uses we might have and build outs based on some of the cloud stuff we're getting.
Yeah, and I would just add that, when we work with agencies like yours that are really focused on delivering the best service for the community and implementing this kind of technology in order to do so, it's almost inevitable that there are going to be times throughout the year that you do want to pull us in for that more hands-on work, or sometimes are pulling in outside consultants to do some of the things that we would be able to help you do. So it's really, having worked with so many different agencies over time, knowing that really this is what we see on a consistent basis, and just building that in so it isn't, it is just easier to have that flexibility when the time comes, because we expect when working with agencies like yours that time is going to come every so often throughout the year. So, but yeah, I think you summarized it. I think it's been summarized pretty well.
So I guess my question is, does staff think that this is going to offset other costs that we have historically had from other consultants we've brought in, or internal IT spend, or something along those lines that would justify this additional cost above and beyond the AI features? Because I mean, I understand the attractiveness of the AI features, and I understand that sometimes searching for information can be difficult on our website. At the same time, it is a relatively short list of other places that have adopted this so far, and while I don't have a fear of technology, I also find that I don't want to be a late adopter, and I also often don't want to be an early adopter. I find that being sort of mid-early is a great place to be as a community. Let other people experience early adopter problems, and then after they've done the second step of beta testing, then we can join in.
I'm going to let Dan react to some of this too first and give him an opportunity. But one of the things that I want to make sure it's clear, I think, Dan, that the government partner service, actually, the credits allow for us to get access to some customization with design services that we don't have. And certainly, we have a choice to make whether or not we do it through this vehicle, or if we do it through, another contracted service, which could be more expensive, or just don't do it, right? And just, deal with what we have. So I think.
Yeah, and that's the heart of the question is this expenditure offsetting against something that we would otherwise be doing that we're going to be able to do more cheaply by doing it this way, or is this something new and additional that we wouldn't otherwise be doing?
I think we always try to be on the side of innovation, and we want to be experimenting and trying to do new things to try to provide a better service to the community. So I think that's what we're suggesting here with, in a couple of ways. One, more responsiveness from Granicus to help us solve problems as they arise, quicker turnaround times, and then also being able to customize and having some flexibility to do that. And I think what we're suggesting here is that this would probably be more cost-effective service than to do it on an ad hoc basis and contract out. And then, and that's why I even mentioned the pathway of just not doing it. But then that doesn't create the value that we're seeking in terms of offering better service to the public and getting better service internally, so that we can be more efficient in how we deliver our work. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think to really answer your question with kind of some of the words you said, I think it allows us to be, efficiently innovative, right? I think it does allow us to be smarter with how we are kind of staying ahead of the curve and not necessarily being the first, right? But being kind of among the early people to, maybe maximize the products that we already have, whether it's, I don't want to use the word upgrades, probably isn't right, but new in evolving technology. I think that that's really important, and I think that it also would allow us to, it would free up staff time that gets tied up maybe working on things that at the end of the day we get stuck on and we aren't able to deliver, but we've spent all this time doing. Whereas we can kind of take those credit hours, work with our government experience partner, and say, we need you to kind of put some bandwidth behind this, and then bring us in and figure out how we can best do it. So I think that that's really kind of a key component to it as well.
Thank you.
Okay, just a couple of questions and comments from me. A little awkward to start with this one because the sales reps for Granicus are on the line, but I understand why we waived the bid process. That is logical. But I am curious about comps and if we looked at similar services from under other vendors and how the investments compare. We did not. We've been working with Granicus since I think 2011 or so, well before I've been part of the village. So we kind of just had, as our past agreement was coming to a close, they kind of started some of those initial discussions. Do we know if there are similar packages and services at similar prices, or I'm just curious. I don't have any awareness of other vendors. Yes, most likely. I mean, I'd have to do a little bit more research and digging to see like how much of it's bundled, right? I mean, this kind of gives us everything that we're looking for. Like we may be able to get someone to help us host our website that doesn't do the agenda creation side of things. I really don't know that, but that would be kind of one scenario that I would see. They kind of have a really strong feel for what municipalities are looking for and bring it kind of all together, under one umbrella, all those different services. And there's efficiency and with staying, and I appreciate that too. So some of the documents that were attached were informative, and I think some of the aspects of what's being proposed are easy for me to support and are compelling in terms of seeing, benefit to staff as well as community. I'll mention that the idea that it's going to build stronger community through data insights, we're going to be able to learn more about the needs of people accessing, community members accessing or searching information. I think that could potentially be very useful for all of our, missions and meeting our goals. Questions around like the inclusivity and accessibility I felt like weren't clear going through the description of the products. A lot of it felt not specific to Oak Park. And so I still don't have a very clear sense of the need. Maybe that's because I haven't been here that long or because I'm, just one person who experienced Oak Park as just one person. But I don't have a sense of like the problems that this is, especially the chatbot that it's solving based on what was described in the documents of what is provided. It seems very general. I don't know what needs aren't being met by the website, by real living, people in our community, enough to understand, oh yeah, this is what's gonna help us specifically deliver, a better service. Maybe it's a great tool, but like, why is it the right tool for us to spend this public money on? Sure. It's still not clear for me. Yeah, so I think, like kind of an example I can give, one of the most frequent pages that we get feedback on or complaints we get from our current website is kind of the permitting process, and people are looking to understand like how to do that. So that's done through CityView, which is a separate entity that's linked through our current website, right? So people leave an email address or phone number, we'll call them, we'll email them, we'll say, you gotta go to this site and kind of do it this way. Using this technology,
we would be able to sort of, direct them down the path of, you're going to want to go to this link, which is not necessarily, it's on our website, but it's not part of our ecosystem. It is part of our ecosystem, but it's not part of, the native page. So we're going to be able to make that easier for people. And I think on the accessibility front as well, one of the things that our new website through Open Cities that we've brought probably almost a year to the day now, that we've been live with that one, is it has kind of a built-in accessibility checker for everything that we do. So before on our old site, like we would just, we understand what the best practices are and what we're supposed to be doing, but this, you can set it to 3 different levels, and ours is at the highest level, and it will tell you, this is a problem that you can get by with, or this is something that's absolutely not allowed, and then we can kind of go in and adjust it accordingly. So that's something that's been tremendously, tremendously helpful over the past year, because everything that gets published on our website is checked by that, and I think that that's a really huge benefit for anyone visiting our site, residents or visitors.
So for the AI agent, it's gonna, I was satisfied with the description of like what the source material would be, and how we would be able to control, any partner agency that we wanted to pull from. Is this going to involve some reorganization and redesign of the website? If there are issues that exist now, why wouldn't that same confusion get pulled in the answers? Or if there's missing information or outdated information, it described here that there's like an onboarding process through that, but I guess more.
Kim or Watson, I know you've kind of explained it to me very well a couple times. Are you able to help field that one?
Definitely. So that onboarding process that you mentioned is the bulk of our implementation on this. And this is where we do a lot of testing with the village to find where that duplicate information is, or that maybe outdated information is, and make sure that that is all cleaned up prior to going live with the agent. We understand that trust is the utmost importance for you, and providing inaccurate information will not help that. So that onboarding process is us working with you to test all those questions and make sure that's all cleaned up prior to go live with the new agent.
You'll also have ongoing insights as well. So if for some reason in the hundreds of questions that we go through in the onboarding process, maybe there's something that's really niche to Oak Park that gets asked, and the website doesn't have sufficient information in order to answer that. You'll also be able to see on the back end that, there wasn't a satisfactory resolution to that inquiry, or somebody left feedback. So you'd be able to maybe garner some more real-time feedback on what what maybe more information needs to be provided on the website as well than you're able to do currently, absent of somebody actually like calling in and providing that feedback, or, submitting a form or something like that. It's a little easier to gather that insight as well.
Okay. Derek.
All right, I'm next. I'm going to continue from, this is a great conversation. I appreciate all the questions from my colleagues. There's a lot here. As someone who builds a lot of tech, boy, this is proposals full of a lot of jargon, and you have to understand all these different proper nouns, and it's a little, I could say this, I'm confused a little bit about exactly all the things we're getting. On some of these, though, I trust staff's judgment in terms of okay, if you say you need this for for some of these pieces, I'm gonna trust in that, because you've had those conversations, right? You've taken the time to have those conversations. I have a question about the credits. It says we get 165 of them. Are those just hours? Is that 165 hours of time, or what is a credit? Kim, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so it doesn't equate to specifically
like 1 hour of time. There's actually a service catalog that breaks down some different ways that you can spend the service credits, but there is more flexibility beyond that. Wasson, do you know if there's like any kind of like specific calculation that makes that easier to explain, or maybe anything to add there?
Yeah, it's not a one-to-one credit to hour. I can get you the conversion rate to what that basically comes down to. I forgot what it is off the top of my head, but it essentially does come down to a rate similar to an hourly rate for what that is. As Kim said, we provided a sample service catalog of things that are already in there, but any of these credits can be used for additional items as well that go outside of that. That's just kind of a reference of what we've created at the top ask from other customers.
Okay. Maybe to use an example would be helpful. So we talked about the immigration resources page. Say we wanted to do, make some changes to it and improvements to it. How many credits does that cost?
That would all be a scoping question of how detailed and how many add-ons and how many pages are there. Is it just one page?
Say it's one page.
Into it?
I'm trying to get you to say a number.
I can't give you a number without having my implementation team to say this is how long it's going to take. As you said, you're familiar with technical. I'm not going to be able to speak for them to tell them how long their work takes. We can give you the examples, right?
Yeah, give me an example.
No. What's in the service catalog, right, that Dan has? It's not for a one-page design on there. Isn't one of the ones that's baked in. But I can tell you it's probably going to be, under 5 probably for this, something like that. Don't quote me, right? I don't know the exact number.
Sure. Okay.
But it's not going to dive into your entire pool of credits.
Got it. Okay, that's helpful. So yeah, it's 5 for like a page like that. That's okay. Fine. Is that a number that replenishes every year?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
How do we reach 165? Do we know we're going to use, and I guess second question, do we know, what if we don't want to use 165 in 2027? Can we reduce that? Do we have to pay, we're paying for the same amount every year? And also, I guess, maybe you'd like to hear this, Granicus folks, what if we want to do more, right? Is that a flexible number in this contract or in this agreement that we're talking about? Yeah, the number that's in there right now is just the standard number that comes with the packages, essentially, of all the bundle of technology that we're talking about. So we didn't add any in there. We can't reduce it because that's just the standard amount that's included in that bundle. But you can certainly add additional credits, and you can do that on, if you find that, hey, you know what? Now that we've been doing this for a little bit, we have a better grasp of how many service credits we think we're going to use on a consistent annual basis. So you can add in additional credits to that annual subscription, or if you can also do it in like a one-time basis as well. So if hey, this year we know we're going to have like this big project that's kind of just above and beyond what we would normally do, and we anticipate that we're going to want some additional resources to put towards that, you could just purchase like a one-time purchase of additional service credits. So yeah, that is flexible, but with the number that you have right now, we wouldn't be able to reduce it because that's just standard what comes with the package that we're putting forward. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. It seems to make sense that it's always easy to add more, but yeah, what's the floor we're paying for? So, okay. Yeah. You guys think we'll use all those? I mean, it's 5 credits for 165 credits, 5 for a page like that. Do we have theoretically enough work to use all those?
We'll find it, right? I mean, I think once we kind of have an understanding of that, we'll be able to kind of build out, an annual plan, if you will. Again, knowing that some things might come up in emergency situations, and maybe we need to keep some in, over here to deal with that stuff. But I think that that's part of what our task is to kind of to map that out a little bit. But I do think that, again, kind of with that proactive strategic partner that we'll have, we'll be able to kind of sit down with them early on and say, okay, here's
here's some of the obstacles we're facing already, and then right off the bat, we can kind of make a roadmap from there of how to use up those hours that or credits that we do have.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I appreciate Trustee Straw's line of questioning around this as well. I mean, the onus is on us to maximize
Yes,
this, right? To push to use these because, it's, in my company, we sell, you sell services, and it's, you're going to work a lot harder if you're going to, it's a variable amount as opposed to, well, we're getting this much money every year, let's just sit back and relax. And if they don't use them all, they don't use them all, right? So it's going to be on us to use all those. So, just a note, which sounds like you're aware of. Okay, and now to the chatbot. I'm not convinced on the chatbot. Unfortunately, I did go to Jackson County, I think. I typed in a few queries again, just like Trustee Wesley. I don't live there, so I don't know. But I wasn't really sure what I wasn't sure what the answers it was giving me. And I was also unfortunately not really satisfied with the answers we got on the metrics, which there are none. There are no metrics of success for the existing customers. I see in the memo that it's being worked on. Those customers are starting to collect that information, but you don't have them now. And to I think Trustee Straw's earlier points, I don't really think it makes sense for us to be the early adopter on this thing when those metrics are not proven out. I already have my own skepticism about it, and frankly, it's like what, 31K or something for the first year, up to 37 is what the max is, plus 15K to set it up. That's 45 grand right there. It's a lot of money, and I'm just concerned that a chatbot is kind of like a Band-Aid over an existing thing. And I would rather we spend a fraction of that money to make our website. If our website has usability issues, that's a solvable problem. There's people in professions that can look at our site and make it better and easier and think about all the clicks that people are making and all the challenges that we know we already are facing. And you can solve it by making the website easier to navigate. And I just I'm just not convinced that a chatbot is going to do that. It'll try to paper over it, but I'm not convinced it's going to solve the problems we think it's going to solve. I haven't really seen a super, super effective chatbot as a customer-facing thing. It's useful as okay, I'm going to ask for some ideas, but it's, I think the adage is, I love ChatGPT. It's great, for all these things that I'm not an expert in, but for the stuff I know about, it's wrong 60% of the time. And if you extrapolate that out, that actually means it's typically wrong 60% of the time writ large. And just to put that in front of customers, even with all the safeguards in place, which I understand we're making something very specific to this, it's just not proven. So I'm really not convinced on that piece of it. So I'm fine with the rest, but I think if I'm going to vote for this, I think I want to take that out. But I'm fine with the rest of it.
Just really, really quickly, because Trustee Eater mentioned the costs associated with this bot. We had a public comment from our animal control employee, and that's the equivalent of what he took home last year for all that work that he described, keeping our community clean and safe.
I'm going to help you out a little bit here. I do this for a living, right? So on the credits, right? So this is basically we're pre-selling professional services, right? And so Granicus gets guaranteed yearly recurring revenue. We get a discount on professional services that we would otherwise buy, so we can afford more for the same price. Can you guys correct me on that if I'm wrong?
You are not.
Thank you. I should work for you. So on the chatbot, I would love for us to finally be an early adopter on tech, something in tech, anything in tech. Like we are, the tech that we have works great. It is not early, and we've taken a long time to adopt it, right? Like this is. Well, I'll be honest. Chatbots aren't early adoption anyway, right? I've been rolling these things out for at least 5 years, right? Not LLMs. That's been the last 2 years, but for chatbot itself, 5 years. And I would agree if we were asking to roll out a chatbot from 5 years ago, I'd absolutely agree with you that it would not be worth the cost. because you have to do a lot of manual configuration to source that data to make it presentable to the end user, and then you're going to miss something because it's all manually configured. What LLMs give you is the ability to take all that informational density that we have on our website and turn it into a human-readable query, right, that somebody can talk to in conversational language, right? I can say, hey, tell me about the budget. And if it thinks that's ambiguous, it might say, which budget? Are you talking about the general budget? Are you talking about the public works budget? Are you talking about the public safety budget, right? And you can go through this whole thing and talking to it like a person, get to the information that you want to get to. Now, you can also Google search our website, right, with our search bar that's there, and return a lot of that information. The problem with that is, and while it does return everything, and it's perfectly fine for me because I know what I'm looking for, folks who don't know what they're looking for get this dense page of information that they now have to sort through, and since they don't actually know the data that they're looking for, they become confused about the data that they get back. And so it's a lot harder to parse it, right? So it's not so much about usability as it is about information density, right? And what LLMs do is allow us to really filter that information out and present it in a way that's a lot more consumable from anybody who's a kid at 5 to a person who's 80, right? And I've seen it. I build these things for a living. And so what I do with my customers, and again, right, 5 years ago, I had to go in and I have to configure all of these various, basically workflows, right? Like you enter here, you say, hey, I need to know what you're going to ask me, because if I don't know what you're going to ask me, you're not going to get anywhere. LLMs just need to have the data. They're going to index the data. And then so no matter what you ask, as long as it's in that data, then they can source it to you, right? And that's where the magic comes in. And it feels magical when it really works, right? And with the RAG database that Granicus uses, it really does work. And it really feels like that the LLM knows everything that we know, because it does know everything that we've told it to know, right? So it's really about us giving it the information that it needs in order for it to be valuable. So it will only be as valuable as the information that we provide to it. But since we know what people are looking for, because we have all that information on our website already, right, like we can put that information into that RAG database, which will then basically put a sandbox around it so that the LLM can't go outside of it. And this is the thing that I was really stress testing it on, because on ChatGPT, there is no sandbox. The world is the sandbox, right? And so ChatGPT can go out and find any kind of information. That's where you get the hallucinations, right? Because if it can't necessarily find something in its database, it'll maybe do an internet search, maybe it'll match something, maybe not. Maybe it won't do the internet search because LLMs get a little finicky, right? And so if it decides not to do the internet search, even though the information is not in this database, it will just create something out of whole cloth. With a RAG database, it doesn't actually do that, right? If the information is not in the RAG database, you just don't get a return. Right, that's the beauty of it, right? And that's why folks, that's why Granicus in this situation uses that sort of technology, is because they want to make sure that it's locked down and get rid of the hallucinations and only return things that are actually verified and bona fide in our documents that we provide to it, right? And that's what makes this so that's what makes this so good, right? Because what is this, 26? I've been using ChatGPT, Gemini, you name it, to actually do all my board work since like 2024, maybe 2023, right? Like you give me an agenda item, Kevin, with like agenda with like 30 things on it, right? I throw all that stuff in like Google Notebook, and then I have a podcast and it talks to me about it. I query it. I have an FAQ. I get like a list of what it thinks is important. All this, man, I got jobs, dude. So I got to make sure I got to make myself efficient, right? And so when I come to the board table, I've already manually reviewed the stuff, but I've also had my LLM, my assistant, review it as well. And so I have a curated list, a curated note of things that I'm curious about, that I'm going to ask questions about, things that I've learned or already know about, and so on and so forth, right? And like, we're late. I've been doing this for the village for at least 2 years. Everybody should be doing this for the village, right? Like, if you need to interact with us, let's make it easy. It's like, yeah, our website is great, but our website is old school, man. The world's changing. Like, this is a new day, right? And if we're not on the bleeding edge of this thing, or we're way past leading edge. If we're just not where we are right now, which is everyone is doing this, or everyone will do this. I mean, over
2,000 municipalities, I think, countrywide are already using AI, community facing. If we're not getting here now, when are we going to get here? And what are we going to do? Right? Like, most of you all aren't on social media all the time. I am, right? And I get all the questions that you don't get, right? And what I do, often I'll either go to the website because I know where the stuff is, or I go ask the LLM because I know how to make it answer me in a way that it won't hallucinate. But I'm just going to do what this is going to do for us. So I now don't have to do it. Or so you guys don't have to do it, because you get these queries too, right? Because you guys have all the official email addresses. So the stuff I don't see, you're seeing. And my whole point here is that this is easy. And if it doesn't work, we shut it off, right? We shut it off, we tweak it, we bring it back, right? I mean, that's how tech works. It's never going to be perfect, but this is damn good. And we should buy it. I'll add, if I can add just one thing. I'm not saying it's not doable, but if there were metrics that showed that it worked, we would see them. If they had them, they would bring them to this meeting, and they don't have them. So not saying not never, but I'm just saying show me the proof that this is going to work.
Well, this is a new product, a new-ish product for them.
Great.
Well, it works. I mean, I tested it. It works, right? It's deployed. We can be the metrics. We can build that proof of concept, right? Like we've seen that it works. Can we get a beta? Dan, would Granicus be willing to give us like a 3-6 month trial, something like that? Proof of concept.
We can talk to them about it.
That 15K startup price is probably a barrier, right? That's what they said it takes to set it up.
Okay, so we pay $15K and we get proof of concept.
I will say this. I mean, I don't know how much of it's kind of a beta, but I do know that one of the examples that I was shown, which I think was listed in the packet, was I think Wyandotte County, and they only had it on. They didn't have it on their entire website. They had it on one specific page, I think related to finance or budget or something like that. So we could feasibly start it that way and then expand across our entire site. So I think that's one way that they've done it in the past. Yeah. Isn't that correct, Boston?
That is correct. That's the way they wanted it out. Was they wanted it to roll it out was with their finance department, as they were seeing the highest number of call volume, as it's a county. So property tax season was coming up, and they wanted to focus in on that to help reduce the call volume and allow the staff to do more things that AI couldn't, actually handle.
How many calls emails, calls, et cetera, does staff get daily? Do we have a gross number, average estimate?
Yeah, not off the top of my head. Those numbers exist. I know that our finance department kind of tracks those monthly from all the different departments.
Yeah, I've heard of them too. I just don't remember what they off the top of my head either. Oh.
Okay, so some of this has been really educational and fun, and I want to know why you haven't taught me how to do that before now. Just
because nobody at this board table uses technology.
All the time, man.
Okay. It's okay. I can learn. But we're at a crossroad. I want to know how we can constructively get some feedback then from where the rest of the trustees stand on their willingness to move forward with this contract. Do we have an answer as to whether it's even an option to move forward with this contract without the AI? But then just like as quickly as possible, where's the will of the board lying on, the willingness to jump forward with it as is? Jim?
So one thing they could do is we could have a beta for our leaf collection questions. We could all go to one spot. Sorry, Rob. But no, sorry. No, but seriously, I appreciate the dialogue, and this was a good way to have an interchange. And really, I learned a lot. And it's a bit out of my lane, obviously. It's not something I do. But I would say, I just want to ask a couple questions. It's $180,000 a year. Is that, what is that?
It's the average is about $166,000 a year.
Okay.
The fifth year is $179. So it goes from, I think, 162 this year up to 179. But this year also includes that $15,000
one-time implementation.
So is that,
And just to call that out, that's all of your Granicus products. That's where that is.
so like,
That's everything. Yeah.
how much additional is it over our current package? We've used Granicus for as long as I can remember.
I mean, it is, but I think this last year was a little bit unique because previously there was something that was rolled in there that got taken out, and that was the 311 report a problem component. So it was a little over 100 if memory serves. So it is more certainly, but it was the 80,000 is a little bit of an outlier.
Okay. And is it a hard 5-year commitment? Is this a locked in for 5 years where we decide, I mean, if we tried it for a year and we didn't like it, or we weren't using the credits, or we weren't appreciating, I mean, I hear staff saying that this is something they really want, and board members. I mean, I think it's something that is intriguing and may offer some good solutions, but if after a year, could we get out of it? Is that something like our flock contract? It was like that, it was gone. So is that the same type of thing?
We could explore that with them. We haven't had that conversation with them with Granicus yet, but we could look at it.
So right now it is a
Right,
lot.
so the agreement on the table is the 5-year subscription.
So it's a,
With the, we should maybe try to clarify that now. I think
Yeah,
that's an
could
appropriate
I-
question. And so the services would be subject to village appropriation. And obviously, we do budget amendments, but on an annual cycle, we approve a budget every year. So in essence, I guess if it's subject to appropriation, the services, it's an ongoing evaluation from year to year. But we should be precise about, what the implications are about like removing a service, or canceling a service. Does it cost us to do that? I don't know. Granicus here, they're here. Perhaps they can help answer this question.
that's the only question I have.
Lawson, do you want to?
Yes. So, are you asking, can it be less than a 5-year agreement?
Is there a cancellation clause?
Not in the current agreement that's on the table that you have in front of you through OMNIA. Is there besides what, the appropriations, but if there is an option year contract that you want to look at, that's something we can definitely explore, and I can get that, to you through OMNIA.
Can we change
Craig?
Sorry.
We typically, with our resolutions, like there's always an opportunity for cancellation. What do we?
That's correct. And in this case, all village contracts are subject to prior appropriation, as Manager Jackson noted. In this case, my understanding is that at the beginning of each contract year, the village pays for a full year of services to Granicus. So if the village were to want to cancel mid-year, it will have in effect already paid for the remainder of that year. So it's really a fiscal year by fiscal year determination for the village to make once you're under contract.
Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Just one last thing. What about change of scope? It would be annual, obviously, right? Because we'd be prepaying. But if we wanted to eliminate something that we don't see the benefit of later on, or change it or add to it, is that doable here? I just want to make sure I understand that these contracts are.
So it
I'm not a
sounds like
lawyer.
it would require updating of the actual contract, but first we would be not paying that initial invoice and then working through that.
And there is precedent for that. That's kind of just the example that I just gave, where in the previous agreement, there was that, report a problem, right? I don't know what the technical Granicus product was, but that they had sold us and it wasn't able to kind of come to fruition after about 2 years. And then we went to them and said, this isn't working for us. And that's why then kind of that last year got reduced a little bit because that was taken out. So there is precedent.
Okay, I mean, I do, for whatever it's worth at this point in the conversation, agree that Granicus has been a reliable partner for a very long time. If there were other new folks that we were bringing to the table right now, I'd be asking why. So, with that, I think is there a way of, if we have a consensus of the board of moving forward with the comfort of the contract as is, or is there something that can be done that then gains that level of comfort? Meaning, and I appreciate your expertise, Derek, so I'm not calling out like in a negative way here, but would it assist if you had additional conversations with staff and Granicus?
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing that I didn't get satisfaction on was the questions about the success metrics for this tool. There are none. There's just a citation of another, I think it was another consulting company talked about chatbots in general and how they're good and things like that. But there's nothing in the memo that I read that was provided by Granicus about the success of their tool. And also, like, what are our metrics? Have we, do we have those, and how are we planning to evaluate that? So if we don't have that, then I don't feel comfortable voting for it. But if that could be provided and those are convincing numbers, then I'll look at that, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm very confident that the staff has put the work into this presentation tonight, which I think has been excellent. This is our first meeting of the year. We all just came off of a break. Normally, there would have been some opportunity to kind of engage with questions. This was a little tighter, just with our schedules coming here. So is there interest with the board to potentially table this? Does it seem something like that Granicus can work with to even just get a memo on identifying I think we'd want them in the contract, some reasonable metrics for evaluating if we're going to potentially be one of the first communities to have this technology. And I also would be excited, as Trustee Wesley said, to be a community that was for the forefront of technology in communication. I think that we do raise the bar, and you actually are responding to the expectations we have continually been asking of you. We raise the bar of what community engagement looks like, and that this is a forward-thinking way of responding to that. But we're also, a board with a strong history of wanting accountability for ourselves and how we're utilizing or spending taxpayer dollars. So if we're going to be potentially the first at this, and we're going to be potentially reviewing it on an annual basis to make tweaks, make adjustments, then conceptually the idea of having metrics then it becomes a requirement. So how do we, is that possible?
I think Dan, you can speak to this. So is the Granicus contract about to expire?
Yes.
Yeah. So you might want to speak to that in a little more detail. Like, where are we? So
this is, as you mentioned, it's kind of a fiscal year to fiscal year agreement, right? So the current one is due essentially. So FY26, we don't have anything in place currently. So we could go back to kind of what we currently have, kind of away from this cloud system, away from the GXA, all that stuff. That would essentially be, the alternative, or along with kind of the what was mentioned before is looking at, various different providers. But to President Skamey, I'd echo your sentiment that I think we've been very, at least in my 3+ years, we've been very satisfied with the service and the services that Granicus has been able to provide to us that we in turn are able to provide to the residents.
Oh, yeah, I don't have any desire to go and out for bid here. I do want to move forward with Granicus. What I'm looking for is how there can be something in the contract that sets out what our expectations or what success looks like, and have that somehow inserted. And maybe it's something that can then further on be on consent in the future. And on next week's agenda, I don't know. That's probably, I'm not going to dictate your timeline here. If we have the will of the board to move forward, but I think, should I take that poll?
You know where I stand?
I do.
I'm comfortable moving forward, though it would be, I'd be more comfortable if there was some modification language in the contract. I think that the thing that's a little concerning is just we're locked in for 5 years, and if we realize we're not using 165 service credits, or we're not, we didn't actually like the AI chatbot, we can't cut something out of the contract and have a reduced fee unless we're willing to say we're not going to appropriate for Granicus and we're going to go somewhere else, and we use that as some kind of like negotiation tactic, but otherwise we're locked in because we sign a 5-year contract. That's my...
Well, I think in essence what we've heard tonight is that because it's already our policy that and the way that we approve the budget and the ability to fund any contract that exists that the Village of Oak Park has, whether, no offense to Granicus, they like it or not, we have the power to do exactly what we said. We have the power to to take something that we currently is in part of the package and effectively taking it out. But what that process would look like is we would be reneging on our contract and renegotiating that contract with whatever then it is that we wanted to proceed with.
Yeah, or you pay for it now, and next year you decide the service is not, the return is not as valuable as we thought it would be, and you just don't pay for that service the next year.
Okay, so what I'm looking for is exactly then what kind of tweaking could potentially be put. So an audit of how much we utilize on an annual basis, can we do that?
We can, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I'm asking.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Yes, so we can have an audit
Yeah, we can
annually of,
Right, and we can even come back in 6 months to see, kind of the early stages of it, to see how it's progressing, what that roadmap is that I discussed before, and then annually as well.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, is there an apples to apples comparison between the question that's being raised right now and what happened with the customer relations management component that we decided to move away from with Granicus, subsequently reduced our costs on the contract? So in essence, we decided at some point that module was not working for us, and we decided to eliminate that service, and it subsequently reduced our costs for the contract.
That is correct, yes. I wasn't, so that product in particular, communications was sort of not indirectly involved with. It was really Public Works and IT were kind of the leaders for the organization on that. But yes, that is exactly what happened. I mean, I was on a lot of those weekly calls, and we kind of were, going around and round. And I know, again, Public Works and IT were having a lot of frustrations with how that product was essentially sort of trying to be built while it was in the air, and it just didn't work. And so then we were able to figure out a different internal solution that does work for staff currently. So that item was taken out of the previous agreement, and the cost was reduced because of that.
Okay, so if I can try to explain, because I don't like having used the word reneging on a contract in a board meeting, but every contract that we sign, there's also the village version of. So the stat, can you help me with this? There's requirements that we have for how we move forward with a contract, and there's always a clause in that would allow us to separate the parts of this out if need be.
You might want to speak to this.
Yeah, so typically the village would have to have the agreement of the service provider, Granicus in this case, to reduce scope, unless the contract explicitly allows the village to reduce scope in a unilateral way, which I'm not certain that that's the case, but I doubt it here. Instead, the village board decides annually whether to appropriate for the entire expenditure, and you can negotiate with the service provider and say, look, we want to reduce scope, will you agree? Because here's your path, right? That's a potential way to address the issue.
I see. Thank you for
so
that.
That's what I was saying when I was saying we can choose to not appropriate as a negotiating tactic, essentially. But once we've signed a contract where we've packaged all of this together, if there's no language allowing us to modify the contract, then we're having to, go through some high stakes negotiation if we want to modify where we're threatening to pull our business to go someplace else. And from everything I've heard tonight, we're happy with Granicus overall. We're not wanting to have to be in a position of saying, well, we'll go with someone else if you don't allow us to excise this one piece of our service agreement. And so I think if we call the question, I'm going to be a yes vote, but I would be happier if we include in the contract language something that allows for a modification, specifically with regard to the LLM chatbot portion of it, where if we decide that it's not working for us, or we're getting reports that it's returning inaccurate information or whatever, we can decide in a future year to pull out that $30,000, because that $30,000 is, it's like 15%, 20% of the total cost to Granicus, and we are at the leading edge. And so I don't know that I want to commit to $30,000 a year for 5 years for something that we may decide that we don't love.
Yeah.
And so that's the one piece I want, in particular, us to be allowed to have in the contract, that if we don't want that, we can get out of that.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable question.
Okay.
And that can be posed to Granicus. My question for Dan would be in relation to that. The time that it takes to do that, to work that out with Granicus, what happens to the existing services if the contract is subject to expire by... So I just want to make sure that we're able to have continuity of services while we actually negotiate that with Granicus, to see if that's a possibility.
I think we would be okay. I think, again, based on our longstanding relationship and, the tenor of these conversations and everything, I'm not worried about that. We can explore the possibility of, and again, understanding everything that's on the table. Maybe if 5 years isn't palatable right now, maybe it's 3 years with that modification language. We can certainly have those conversations. Throughout this entire process, Kim, Lawson, everyone else on their team who we've worked with has been very, very responsive. So I don't think it's going to take a very long time to kind of get that clarity and get those answers that are being sought.
Yeah. So I think, depending on what the board wants to do, I think we're willing to give it a shot.
And can we do it contingent upon, can we vote tonight contingent upon putting something in the contract that allows us to renegotiate that in a year's time?
Yeah,
in terms of direction on the contract.
right.
Yeah.
I think the direction, if that's the will of the board, is clear to further negotiate, but introducing this could change pricing. There's talk about contract term. I think
Okay,
there's too many
fair enough.
contingencies to take a binding vote this evening on this matter, except for what's been presented per the agenda.
No, okay, appreciated. So, and thank you, Brian, for the clarifying of the language that I got lost in. So, I understand I've got folks that are ready to vote right now, yes. But if this is something that can appear on consent with this issue addressed, then are we okay tabling this? Okay, then I would ask that we have that motion to table.
I think I moved on this one. How friendly it.
I think it might have been you.
Oh, you moved and I seconded.
You did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what do I need to do?
So at this point, if trustees Wesley and Eder, who moved in second, just withdraw their motion, then the consensus of the board is understood, and there's no need to make a motion to table.
Thank you.
I withdraw my motion.
Second.
Okay, very good. Now, I do want to make it very clear that Granicus has been an excellent partner. Their services have, I've been upset anytime we've diverted from using Granicus, honestly. And so like the tremendous amount of work that must have gone in this to actually meet our expectations, and appreciate, you know, the expertise of my colleagues, that when we do vote for yes for this, it's going to be with a level of confidence and accountability. So thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I think on presentation discussion on the outcomes of village waste characterization study at 9:20. Okay.
Yeah, I
You
was
guys
gonna-
got 40 minutes.
Okay, I can promise that the presentations are not that long. And the two items, there's a relationship between the
No,
the
that's
two
for
items.
both items. You got 40 minutes.
Yeah, and so the items are related. We'll introduce them and get going. It is 9:19, and I don't know where the discussion's gonna go. So, and it's really about presenting the outcome in one item, and then on the other item, and we'll talk a little bit more explicitly to it when we get to it, is really about just, you know, getting ready for the review of the contract. But let's start with this one. This is the waste characterization study. The goal of this was created as part of Climate Ready Oak Park. So we followed through on that direction to produce this study. We did it. We have an outcome, and so we want to report back on the outcome. The outcome confirms that Oak Park is still a leader in the region and with waste reduction and diversion. The outcome also suggests that, you know, a next step could be, you know, maybe creating the first solid waste plan for the Village of Oak Park, therefore adding more strategic direction to the work that we're doing to get better and better with waste reduction and diversion. So we have Erica Helms, our Environmental Services Manager, Public Works, is going to present this item.
Sure, yeah. Good evening, everyone. I have a whole introduction, but I will keep it short and just let SCS engineers get to it. We issued the RFP in January of this year for this project and selected SCS engineers. And we kicked this off in July of 2025. The project includes an analysis of the village's historical waste data and existing programs, an audit of the residential waste streams, a community-wide waste study, and then they provided some viable recommendations for us. So I'll let them get to their presentation. We do have all of the charts and everything from the report on slides if you wanted to dive deeper into the data, but also I'm happy to pass along any questions to SCS and we can communicate offline about it. But I'll hand it over to Spencer and Richard.
Good evening. There are 45 slides in the deck. We're going to go over 12, so, just to clarify that. My name is Spencer LaBelle. I'm with SCS Engineers, and I'll be presenting with my colleague, Richard Southorn. Today, we're going to talk about the study, the outcomes, and we're also going to talk about next steps for consideration. So first, we want to thank the village for giving us the opportunity to be your partner for this study. It's a very important study. We want to also acknowledge Erica for her engagement and collaboration and Rob for his leadership. You guys are dedicated to the village and it is very clear. We also want to thank LRS for being the host facility. We do waste characterization studies nationally. And LRS stands out as a facility that really cared deeply about our team's safety and also accommodating our asks. So we really appreciate them and their team. So the current state of waste in the village of Oak Park. This is an overall snapshot of what's happening, but zoomed out, the village is generating less waste per person per year compared to the national average and suburban Cook County average, and it's a great place to start. In addition, recycling and diversion is at a higher rate than national averages and other communities within suburban Cook County. So a great foundation has been built within the village, the programs that are maintained currently. In addition, I want to point out that recycling contamination is about half than the U.S. average, which is a key indicator that people within the village know what they should and should not be recycling. So
So the waste characterization study was conducted because it was one of the key goals for the Climate Ready Oak Park initiative. For waste reduction as one of the umbrellas, one of the goals was to expand waste data and better understand what people are throwing away within the village. And that was the outcome of the waste characterization study. So the study focused on curbside residential collection. So we're looking at homes and single-family homes and 5 units or less that are part of the curbside collection program. So the study focuses on 3 key values and purposes. The first is to understand the composition of MSW, which stands for Municipal Solid Waste, also known as garbage. To understand the composition of garbage, recycling, and the contamination in the organic stream, to understand what people are throwing away in the village. It also helps the village refine the greenhouse gas emissions inventory. Right now, the state of Illinois, the last waste characterization study on a state level was done in 2015. One is currently ongoing, but the value of having localized data allows the village to better represent their contribution compared to an average on a statewide level. And lastly, we're also able to uncover opportunities for additional waste reduction and diversion. So the material characterization study was conducted the last week of August, and surprisingly it wasn't very hot. We covered 3 material streams: municipal solid waste or garbage, recyclables, and then we looked at the contamination that was found in the organic stream. We hand sorted approximately a ton of material every day, myself included, and that allowed us to collect data for each collection zone. The municipality is broken out into 5 collection zones Monday through Friday, so we have data on that granular level of what people in the collection zone on Monday were throwing away, recycling, and what contamination was found in the organic stream. There are a lot of key findings, and we tried to make it palatable in graphics to better understand what's going on. I'm going to go over a couple of key findings, more want to discuss what is of interest, and it's all in the report. So about 1/3 of the MSW stream is organic material, and about half that is unpackaged food waste. That material has a better, higher use in the compostable program than it does in the garbage stream. In addition, approximately 50% of the recyclable of the stream was either recyclable or compostable, right? You'll see a lot of paper in that MSW stream and a lot of plastics. Those materials should be in the recycle stream, not in our garbage stream. There was some variation across the collection zones, which we showed graphically. It didn't vary significantly for MSW and recycling, but it did for organics contamination. Also, we want to highlight the low recycling contamination rate at 8.8%, which once again is less than half of the US national average. And again, and in addition, the organics contamination rate that was quantified was approximately 4%, which is incredibly low. So people that are part of the compostable program are well aware of what they can and can't throw away. What we mostly found was people tossing their Diet Coke can in with their grass clippings just because it was the nearest receptacle. So as part of the characterization study, we were also asked to support a survey to understand what stakeholders, what their patterns are, what they want to know. And through the Engage Oak Park platform, this survey, in support with Erica and Rob, was one of the most successful surveys conducted on that platform. We had more than 1,100 individual responses, and it ranged a broad demographic. The age demographic of respondents generally reflected what we're seeing in the census of the representation of the village of Oak Park. We also, one of the key metrics that we noticed is that approximately 30% of respondents are not in the compostable program or engaged in composting at all. Usually in surveys like this, we get people that are already engaged and want to, demonstrate that. we did get a representation of people that are not engaged, and we were able to understand their barriers and get that feedback, which is incredibly valuable. So the survey results ultimately confirmed the composition results. An example of that is we asked people what materials they most likely recycle. They identified paper, and that's what we found in our recycle stream as one of the most recycled materials. It also highlighted values and motivations on engagement, specifically financial incentives being a key motivator, and also, environmental impact being a motivator. It highlighted barriers and questions about recycling and composting. Specifically, a question that we saw very often was people might not recycle because they don't know how clean a recyclable item needs to be before it can be recycled. Like, how clean do I need to get my peanut butter jar before I can recycle it, right? LRS is a great partner that has those metrics, and now we understand that that's a barrier for people in what their participation in recycling. Another key factor of the survey is that it affirmed that the village and your residents are looking to the village website and village publications for their recycling and garbage information. That's really important. That gives you guys the opportunity to provide clear messages as they're looking to the village for that. And lastly, nearly 90% of respondents identified as being satisfied, very satisfied, or felt neutral about the current solid waste collection services that LRS is providing. So Richard is going to talk a little bit more about some next steps that we suggested. We're not going to go through all of them from the report, but we want to highlight a few to talk more.
Yeah, and we can go quickly. Because, really at the end of the day, this study is really, really powerful because it gives you a lot of data on what's going on in the community. And that is something that not many communities have. And we really hope that you are going to end up using it as a tool. There are a lot of things that are interesting. I look at it and, what I see is you can see the leadership and the vision of Oak Park coming out through the data. Oak Park has been a community that has strived to really push sustainability, push to be environmentally responsible, and that really is borne out in the data, where you're seeing, you're beating all the averages. But, I also look at it and think, man, you guys have set up a successful composting program, and yet there's still 35% of compostable material in your waste mass. Those type of things, what I really hope is that the village will take the time to digest what this data is showing and compare it to a lot of what the goals and the objectives are, so that you can figure out, what programs are really working well and what could be tweaked and fine-tuned to get better success. So once the data is digested and once, the pursuits of Oak Park is compared against that, we're really hoping that the village will take the time to develop a written solid waste management plan that identifies how those objectives can be improved, what the next steps are to get you to the next level, and then also be able to use this data as a benchmark to gauge success. It's always hard to tell where you're going if you don't know where you've been. You now have wonderful data that can really help you, capitalize on that and figure out how to make some of those improvements go forward. I think you were going to take the next slide, right?
Up and down. Another important consideration is to build upon the foundation that has been established about education and outreach. The survey was really powerful to understand what barriers are there for the residents. And so building education and outreach campaigns around those surveys results is one of the things that I think Rob and Erica and the team that they work with will be important to focus and target that. In addition, the characterization study and the survey are tied geographically within the community, right? We've got the northern portions of the community that are picked up Monday, Tuesday, southern portions Thursday, Friday. So there's data that we can have, or we have in the study and the survey that is tied to an address to help us tailor education and make sure that people understand and provided the information that they need to participate correctly in the compostable program and understand what is recyclable and what is not.
You know, another thing that we would recommend is doing a rate study. When we look at this, you know, we recognize that all this stuff costs money. It costs money to collect and dispose of garbage. It takes money to collect organics, compost. It takes money to recycle. And what's one thing that really jumped off the page to me is when we did the survey, 73% of the respondents, and there were a lot of respondents, 73% of them said that financial incentives are one of the key drivers that they consider to drive their participation in the program. So I guarantee you there are people out there that are probably passionate about composting, but there's a financial barrier that they're not willing to cross at this point. Knowing that everything costs money, you know, one of the things that we would recommend is really taking the time to digest what do these programs cost? What are the users of those programs paying in? And is there a way to restructure potentially some of the way that those are charged out so that you can get a greater participation in the programs that align with your objectives? So, for example, if you're trying to drive composting, is there a way to potentially drop that price down and then raise something else up, or you know, however that works, to really drive optimal you know, engagement? So that is one thing that we would really recommend. Going across. And then the other thing I just really want to convey to everybody is this is a huge data set. There is a lot of good information about this, but it's really only capturing 65% of the people who live in Oak Park. And the reason why is it's not covering the people who live in apartments or multifamily dwellings. And the way that waste collection is managed in those types of living are different than people who have curbside. You know, when you live in an apartment, it's your landlord who is choosing who your hauler is, whether they're going to put out a recycling bin. So there is different access to these programs for the people who are in multifamily dwellings than they are to the people in the curbside. And we are missing data from a third of your residents. So if you are truly focused on sustainability and trying to maximize some of these programs, I think it's really important to also have a dive into what is going on in the multifamily dwellings, in the apartment buildings, so that you can come up with incentive programs or ordinances or policies to drive closer to your mission of advancing sustainability, which I know you guys are committed to. With that, I know everybody's eager to keep going, so let's just open it up for questions.
I do want to start out by thanking you for sitting here for the last several hours and waiting for this moment and then being told that you got 40 minutes. You're handling it very well. Brian.
I'm often the one to say, like, you know, listening public, you should read this report. But I will say that once again. I received a text message from someone saying this is oddly fascinating, and it is. You know, we've got 170 pages here, and I will say the 35 pages at the start is the report part. So if you don't want to read all the attachments, you don't have to. But it's fascinating. It's an incredibly rich amount of data, and I think that one of the things that really highlights for me is we do clearly have a community that cares about and wants to be composting, wants to be doing the right thing about recycling, is seeking out information on how they can do that. And so it leads me to really want to do more to support that, because I think we've talked before about composting and whether we can make that a universal program. And I think that this data supports us looking at efforts to make that a universal program, because what we're seeing is the cost of composting is one of the barriers to people adopting composting. A full 35% of our refuse, our MSW, is compost. That's what we're sending to the landfill. And if we made it easier for people to put that compostable material into a compost bin, we would have a huge change in behavior there that would make these numbers even better. And so I found this all fascinating. I do want us to push forward on how we can both increase the breadth of the composting program, both within these single and small family houses, and really look at how we can push adoption of composting in multifamily, because I know we have pickup sites where people in multifamily dwellings can take their composting, but one of the concerns raised about composting is like, well, it'll be smelly, and if all you have to do is take your compost bag to your compost bin across the lawn, that's one thing. If you've got to take your compost bin bag and put it in your car and drive it to a drop-off site, it's far less likely to happen. And so, I do want us to look at how we can push composting further, because I think it's clear from this data that this is a service that our community is utilizing and is utilizing well. I think it's also clear from this data that further education and resources about what is compostable and non-compostable in the sort of paper and cardboard space could be helpful, because there's some stuff that's not being composted that could be, and that seemed to be one of the largest drivers of contamination in the organics waste stream. And I can say that is sometimes a confusing space, like, okay, yes, I can put the pizza box, but not the little corrugated coated sheet that is in the bottom of the pizza box in the compost, and making sure that I'm putting this in the trash and the little tent that goes on top of the pizza in the recycling and this in the compost. Just a glimpse into my household. So I want to push on the composting, and I want us to look at how we can do a little bit more community education around the most frequent contaminants we see in recycling and compost, and the most frequent recyclable materials we see in the MSW stream, because I think it's also clear from the data that there's some confusion where people maybe have outdated information about what can and cannot go in their recyclable stream. And so there's stuff that we weren't able to recycle maybe 20 years ago that we can recycle now, and that they are out of habit because of outdated information, still putting it in the trash instead of in the recyclable stream.
So I know there was no question, but I think you hit the nail on it. And I got to say, I mean, I really do commend you guys as well, because most people don't have data to make decisions. And I'm glad that you read the report. It sounds like you actually invested some time in it, and there is a lot of actionable insight, I think, from the data.
Thank you for all your work.
Corey?
I agree with Trustee Straw more than he agrees with himself.
I was going to make a joke and say the report was total garbage, but I didn't think it was appropriate. So, but just to the points made tonight, and they're good points. Education is very important, and what we did years ago, actually with our former supplier, I worked with Sally Stovall and Dick Alton back in the day, and there was a sticker that went on the top of the bins, and it had pictures of what is in a recyclable bin, what it can be in a composting bin. If we could get those on our cans throughout the village, and I tried to push back then, I still have it on mine, even though my lid is broken and I can't get LRS to come out to replace it. I still have one.
My lid needs to be replaced like every 3 months. The squirrels chew
The
through
squirrels, they eat right through it. They love it. So anyway, I do have it's something I think you guys probably have, but it would be nice that if we rolled that out to the community, or at least made it available where people could pick it up like in the front here, because those are really helpful for me. I'm not an expert on that, and I learn as I go, and it has the pictures about what to do and what goes in which container. And it's like people don't know, and that if you break through that part of it, I think it'll be a lot easier for people to really participate at a greater level. So this is my 2 cents. Thank you.
Well, it is interesting. I mean, I'll just reiterate. The number one place that people look for this information is the website.
Mm-hmm. Derek?
I'll be quick. Ditto to everything my colleagues say. Excellent work. I've been waiting for this report for a while, and so I'm excited to see it, and excited to see that the data bears out. Some great findings here, and it's encouraging, right? I mean, good job, Oak Park, right? You guys are actually doing it, and this is very exciting to see. Rob knows where I'm going. I want universal composting. How do we get there? How do we get there quickly? I'm actually kind of curious, and maybe a question for you, but last time we talked about this, we're at about 30% subscription rate to composting in the village. I think I remember you saying something around like you want to get to that tipping point of around 50%. Does the fact that we already have such an educated and well-performing village when it comes to composting, does that change that number for you, or do you still feel like that's the tipping point? I'm basically trying to get to how do we get there faster? Does this change anything? Or I'll direct it to the experts. Yeah, yeah, sure. But yeah, experts, please.
Yeah, thank you for your question. It is my opinion that I am in agreement with Rob about the 50% metric. We're sitting at 28%. The survey bears out that costs and concerns about pests and odors are one of the things that are keeping people away from participating in the compostable program. Knowing that financial incentives is also, another motivator. There's some, I think, steps before we get to universal composting that probably need to happen to increase participation to kind of tip that scale to making universal composting kind of align with that.
Okay, and those questions would be answered in something you mentioned, a waste management plan. Is that the obvious next step here, or what? What do you?
Yeah, because it being our first recommendation, a solid waste management plan is going to make sure that all departments within the village are aligned on the goals of how the village wants to manage material, both garbage, recycling, and composting. So to set those goals and to be able to track those metrics over time, we think is a really important place to start for any plan that you want to progress and expand. So we have a really good baseline here in this data. We have a good, representation of August in 2025. Setting those goals and then being able to track them towards the progress, I think, is an important place to start.
Okay, great. Well, I'm very supportive in moving that direction, so thank you.
Okay. Any further comments, questions?
Thank you for your time.
Of course. I mean, I've had discussions amongst people who know composting about what can be composted and what can be recycled. Debate, so, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
And
That was quite a sigh.
first meeting back. I'm still jet lagged. And I'm the one who's supposed to move us on now, okay. A presentation, discussion by staff in the Village Waste Hauler LRS on the current status and future options for the village waste hauling contract.
Rob Sproul.
Good evening. Well, thank you for this opportunity. We really thought that going along with the waste characterization study and already hearing some feedback from the board on what they found of value there, where they want to potentially see the community go in the future, we thought a great tie-in was to bring in our waste hauler, LRS. They were amazing partners during this process. But where we're at with their current contract is, they've been the village's partner since 2022. Initially was signed a 5-year agreement with the village with 2 optional 1-year renewals. And so that contract is set to expire in the end of March 2027. So we are getting to a point where the village board is going to need to make a determination on whether they want to renew the existing contract with LRS or go back out to bid with a potential timeline of transition in March of 2027. So kind of working that back from that date, the time that it would need for staff to put together a potential bidding process, go out to bid, and if a new hauler was selected, kind of transition, we would need the village board to make a determination on a path forward end of March of this year, so before the April break. So with that in mind, we wanted to create an opportunity for the current hauler to come in, talk about the existing service level that they're providing, some of the issues that they've faced, some of the successes that they've had, and talk about maybe what their potential vision for the future potentially could be with the village, and then also to hear feedback from the board on any kind of concerns that they have or potential directions that they want to move in the future, so that LRS can hear those things. They are very interested in signing a renewal. They are not committed to they're not committed solely to the existing terms of the existing service package and would be willing to entertain some potential changes as part of a renewal. And so we really wanted to provide this opportunity for the board to have some direct engagement with the hauler and staff if they want, and have any questions that they have, and let the hauler hear some of the priorities, so that as we prepare a recommendation for the board in the end of March and are providing a potential renewal package from the hauler, that we can try to meet the needs of the boards or the interests of the board as much as possible. So with us tonight from LRS, we actually have a strong team. We've got George Strom, who's the Area Vice President for LRS, here tonight to speak. We've also got our account manager, Jordan Kraber. We've got, and 2 members of their sustainability team, Joy Rifkin, and I just met Natalie tonight, who is also an Oak Park resident. So strong representation locally here as well. So, but before we started, I know we're running out of time, but earlier this year, we put together this video with LRS about something that's very unique that they've provided to the community. And so I just wanted to take a quick moment maybe to show that to the board in case they haven't seen it. It really is a moment. But it's something I think that's really special and unique to the community, and something that LRS provided to us, understanding where we want to go as a community at large and where our priorities and goals are.
Thank you.
When we got this truck about a year ago, we were thinking of what would be the best community to partner with. And the first one I thought about was Oak Park. Our new LRS Mack electric rear loader that we're debuting in Oak Park. Many people won't even realize it because it's super quiet. We're so excited to have such a great partner as LRS that shares the same values with sustainability and have this innovative electric compost truck servicing Oak Park.
So this is actually one of the first ones in the United States that's out on route. It's collecting compost in your community every single day. So it really lines up well with LRS's commitment to the environment, reducing their carbon footprint. When we're going through your alleys every week, it's a lot quieter, but it's a lot more sustainable.
We hope to see more trucks like this in the future. The best way to see it is to sign up for our compost program.
If you do see it coming down the street, I'd love it that you could stop the driver, talk to him about it, show your children, because my kids love it, and I think yours will too. So thanks again for the opportunity to share this with you in Oak Park.
All right. So with that, I'll invite George to come up. I think he might have a few words that he wants to say, and then we would just open it up to questions from the board, or if there's any additional direction that they want to provide as it relates to the contract.
Okay, so George, you do get more than 4 minutes if you so decide. Well, no, that's the will of the board. Can I entertain a motion to go past 10 p.m. so that we do not interrupt this poor gentleman?
So moved.
Second.
All right, well,
All in favor?
Aye.
thank you so much for the time. Quick story. I know we're already pressed on time, but I once flew out to New York for a board meeting. I had like a half-hour presentation. It went long, and they said, you have 1 minute to give us the pitch. So I know how to work on tight timelines, but again, Madam President and Board, first of all, thank you so much for the time to present to you. My name is George Strom. I am the Area Vice President for LRS. I oversee about 50% of our company overall, and the thing that I'm most proud of is, I was pretty much raised in this market. My family had a business in Maywood for 75 years that was sold to LRS 5 years ago. And one of the first contracts I really wanted to target was Oak Park, because I managed River Forest contract for a long time, and I know your two communities are so connected, sometimes competitive with one another, a little bit friendly conversation there. But I was really passionate because I knew that I believe we could bring a lot of value to your community. Not only did I think bringing in was significant value savings to your customers, meaning you, the customer, and the constituents that we service, but I think also we brought in a lot of value, which I wanted to just go through. Again, my background is I've been in the waste industry my entire life. My family has been in the business for about 4 generations, primarily based out of Maywood even up until this day. That's where my kind of area office is based out of. So I spend a lot of time in River Forest and Oak Park, quite daily, I'll say. And then really I wanted to speak specifically about the program that you have today, because a lot of the pieces that you see do have my fingerprints on it. Specifically, one of the things that I'm really proud of is the transition that we did do initially, which I know some of the residents may speak about the carts that they have today and a broken lid or some of the issues that we have. Specific to that was when we look at the level of sustainability we want to speak to as being a good steward to the environment, one of the pieces is you look at, forget the recycling, forget the composting, just don't do it at all. Don't produce it. And so one of the pieces initially when we were starting this relationship was, well, how can we make the transition easy? You've been with your incumbent hauler for 20 plus years. Curbside is the way that we deliver carts, meaning any customer or company that delivers carts in the country is going to say they have to go at the curb. So that means your resident would have had to drag 2 to 3 carts somehow to their back alley. So that was something we wanted to avoid. So that was the reason why we say we're going to make it easier for the resident, and we're also going to avoid the financial impact and the carbon footprint of creating what we have in my actual written speech is about the weight of the Statue of Liberty in plastic that you got to avoid by keeping the carts that you have. Now, if you have a broken lid or something like that, that would be a fantastic thing for a chatbot to field a question like that. How do I replace my cart? And just type it in and then get it into our system for us to go ahead and get a thing to replace. And to be totally transparent, that's something that I had pitched internally to our company about 5 years ago. I was saying I would love to have a QR code on the top of our lid where a resident could just scan it, ask some questions, and get that issue resolved. Fortunately, it hasn't come to market yet in our organization, but that's the type of level of thought and ease of use for the customer that I would like us to get towards, because then when you have a question related to, is this, peanut butter jar cleanable, compostable, whatever it is, hopefully we can get them an answer rather quickly. Because I do 100% agree with you
that the level of conversation relating to recycling is so personal. You know, we were just down as a family in Florida for a week on vacation with my in-laws, and my father-in-law was just debating with my mother-in-law about this Starbucks cup, and in Tennessee, that they were driving down, you know, whether or not this cup was recyclable, you know? And so, again, this is something that hits everybody, and everybody has a different view of what actually is or is not recyclable. So we have such a far way to go to how do we meet the resident, which is our customer, you know, your constituent, where they are, when they want it, and how do we get them that information. Lid access, I 100% agree with you. We need to have that decal, that in-mold label, whatever it is, to meet them at the cart. But how do we meet them in their living room? You know, how do we meet them where they want to be? And that's something that I think we need to strive to do better, and ideally, with a continued partnership, that's something I would love to be a key stakeholder in to help kind of push that foot forward. Some of the other things, again, and forgive me, I am long-winded sometimes in my conversation, but I'm also really proud of the continuation of the kind of household hazardous waste program. Oak Park is one of the top users of that program for us. So I don't know if we really even looked at that in our waste characterization survey that we did, but that also is diverting material from the landfill that normally would go. And in most cases, that motor oil, things of that nature, you know, syringes, paint, hard to recycle pieces, you're recovering, and most communities are not. So that would mean your resident normally in another community is just going to throw that can of oil probably in the garbage or someplace else that they don't want it to go. Your community is capturing that. So that might be something that we should talk about. We could give you all the data from Oak Park to say this is also something that may be an addendum to that characterization, okay? So I really am proud of that. I'm really, really proud of the electric truck. To be transparent, I was in the, it's called, I think, Bulldog Magazine, which is the Mack truck magazine, about 5 years ago when they announced the LR, which is the Mack you saw in that video, and I was quoted in the magazine that I wanted to bring it to actually the neighboring community of yours, because I thought it would be a fantastic fit in that community. Well, it turns out Oak Park was the right community for us, and so we did have this one vehicle that we were struggling kind of to figure out the perfect customer, the perfect town, the perfect place to use it, and it lined up perfectly for Oak Park. We just brought it up and we said we want to start using this, we started testing it, and we use it now every single day in your town, which I have to say, I still don't believe there's a single waste hauler in the state of Illinois that uses it on a residential collection basis every single day. So I'm really, really proud of bringing that opportunity to Oak Park, and it fits exactly with what I think the mission is of this community. Last but not least, the LEAF program that is so fun to discuss. I'm not taking a side, I'm just providing the service, but I can give kind of some notes that I personally think are helpful from a, again, I think I oversee 150 municipal contracts, so I have a lot of different customers, and I've got a lot of them right now that are really struggling with the LEAF Act program that they have, or the PAN program that they have. I don't want to use specific municipal names, but what I would just say from an outsider's perspective or someone that also does this for a living, the thing that I think would be a concern of mine and the issue that we had this year, meaning we had leaves come down late. So we were all assuming in our business that these leaves are going to come down and we're going to get blasted. The first kind of traditional season, and I agree with you on the climate change piece, is that normally they kind of traditionally fall like this, right? In a little bit like that. They didn't, so none of the leaves came down. And all the guys are coming in super early, the weights are super light, and all of a sudden we're saying, we're gonna get destroyed. And that's what happened. Then they all fell, and then Thanksgiving hit, and that storm came through, and a lot of people, didn't even get their leaves off of their grounds yet. So now, when you go to my house, it's covered in leaves everywhere, because we didn't do the cleanup yet, you know? And then the other challenge being, these leaves then were frozen, and then your teams went out and did the snowplow, right? So what concern I would have from a safety perspective, if those leaf piles were on the ground like they were in River Forest or some other communities, it creates a real safety concern, in my opinion, just based off of the fact that your plows are now going through there, especially because these communities keep it on the street. Now, some other communities may keep it actually like up on the parkway, but what I tend to see a lot of times is it comes down into the street, we push it down the parkway, and then it's a big pile. So my concern would have been if you had the LEAF program like you had in the past, would be that it could be that these are frozen mountains all over the street that create an extreme hazard for your residents. So in hindsight, yes, did it create a lot of maybe extra issues related to then the frozen foot of snow being gone? The residents didn't have time to clean up their leaves because it was already frozen and you were hoping to do it on your weekend holiday for Thanksgiving, and now you can't. So that just created a really, really bad situation. And that's just my opinion. I'm not kind of speaking right, wrong, or indifferent here. I'm just kind of giving you what I'm seeing, because I'm getting a lot of videos. I was texting with some of my colleagues that manage some of the communities up north for me, and they're out there right now with their leaf vacs. In fact, I've got another community that asked us to bring 15 leaf vac trucks in when they normally use the traditional leaf pan, which is what you did prior. So we also struggle as an industry, and I'm getting long-winded, but I want you to have more of the details, is the way that we have to do our union staffing is a lot of our team members who do that cleanup are seasonal based. So they're only allowed to work with us until December 15th. And so once they leave, we struggle as an industry to have the manpower to do a lot of the things that we're talking about. Now, granted, we've worked on pushing that time in some of our other union markets to go to the end of the year, December 31st. So these are pieces that we're working on because of the change in the environment that we live in. We're used to say December 15th used to always be fine. Well, now in a lot of our municipal contracts, the customers are coming saying, we need till the end of the year. You know, we need longer because these leaves are coming down. What are we going to do about it? So I just want to give more clarity, again, of some of the things that we're dealing with, some of the things that we're doing. I know we can improve. Everybody can improve. We can take feedback and improve on it. And that's my role, and that's what my team is here to do, is get the feedback from the customer and work on fixing it. So if it's a broken lid, how do we make sure that the resident doesn't feel pain on that? If it's my guys backing up, leaving an alley, which I'd heard that complaint for a long time, is remembering that we should be better stewards of, if the residents are frustrated with this, what's the reason behind it? Well, we're concerned that if there's a child walking through and they're gonna get hit. We don't want that to happen, so what can we do to mitigate that? You know, slow down, maybe get out, look both ways, get back in the truck and go through properly. So again, to wrap up, I just want to be clear that I'm here tonight to reflect on what we've done, but I also want to listen to what we can do to do better. You know, I'm really focusing on my team, my area leadership as constant improvement rather than resting on what a lot of times people look at our industry as creatures of habit. We should always try to improve, whether it's improve engagement with the resident, whether it's improving the units that we're using, whether it's better signage on our carts, whatever it is, we should be constantly looking to improve and creating a program specific to the communities that we serve in order to make sure that we're hitting all the key pieces that you deserve. You know, so again, I want to thank you for your time. I know it's been a long night. I really enjoyed a lot of the conversations. Personally, we've had a lot of good listening pieces. But again, I will open up to any conversation you want to have directly with myself now. You know, I am happy to have any sort of dialogue that I can provide clarity on from not just your vendor, but an industry expert. You know, I know a lot about this industry, a lot about this market, and I can give you kind of both sides of it as a vendor, but also as somewhat of as a consultant, I'll call myself.
Thank you. Brian?
One of the complaints I've heard a number of times regarding the transition that we went through is the transition to the sort of grab arm as opposed to a more manual process, because that grab arm occasionally either it itself makes contact with a structure, or as it is bringing a cart down, that cart will make contact with a structure, which can cause damage to siding, as we heard earlier, damage to garage doors, and I've heard very rarely, like, you know, people asserting that it caused damage to their vehicle. Mm-hmm. You know, what steps do you take in training, since we're using an automated grabber arm, to make sure that that property damage isn't happening, and to deal with situations where it is?
Yeah, thank you for that note, because I've heard that issue before. In fact, you know, interesting piece was I'd served another community that's alley-based, and we didn't use the automated trucks, and we still had similar issues. You know, driver pushes the cart back too much, and the siding is brittle and it cracks, you know, or they push it up against the downspout, bends the aluminum downspout. So it's an issue that exists. I would think that the bigger piece of it is our drivers being honest and reporting incidents. That's one of the biggest things that we push on our team is you have to report everything. You know, even in our collective bargaining agreement is one of those things, if they don't report incidents, it's an extremely big offense. And so we take that really seriously. And then when we do have damage, we need to investigate it and make sure that it's actually legitimate damage, you know. And so the one thing that the gentleman commented on earlier was, you know, they say they have this video thing. One of the things that we do have is 9 cameras on all of our trucks that record all the time through Third Eye is the system. So the first thing we normally do when we get a piece of information of any sort of damage, you know, we normally pull Third Eye. And you can see, I mean, the full 360 on the truck, everything that's going on. And what tends to occur a lot of times is to say, you know, if we did it, we should be on it right away. It should be resolved, should be fixed. If it's an extreme damage, you know, let's say you pushed a cart and busted a windshield on a car or something really extreme, that's going to go through our claims department, like any insurance issue, so it may be longer. But then sometimes you also see, you know, they're reporting and say, well, it happened 3 months ago. I didn't call it in when it happened. And then it becomes a real challenge, you know, because you're trying to work with the resident to say, okay, well, you know, what is it that actually showed the damage occurred? You know, so it's a case-by-case basis. And in most cases, when someone has a realistic expectation of what the results should be, I hope we can get there with the resident. And if we're not, it needs to get elevated up to myself or our general manager, John McGee, or our operations team members, you know, to resolve it as best as possible. But the old provider was using a similar Corrado truck front load, very similar, you know. We used the rear load for yard waste, which you saw in that, in compost, and the same was used with the old hauler.
And then, you know, one of the other complaints we hear frequently is broken, damaged, or missing lids.
Yes.
Is it possible to implement a system where, like, drivers just know that, hey, there's a lid missing on this bin, and so just as a
proactive measure, I agree.
Proactive, like, I don't think it should necessarily even require a resident to make a complaint. You guys are having weekly interactions with every one of these bins.
Yeah.
So if you take a list of here are the bins, then new bins can appear at those houses the next week.
I totally agree with you on that. Absolutely. I think we have a good catch near miss program, which we could use for that, which is normally safety related. If a driver does something that they realize is a good catch, they can automatically put it in and it gets recognized, and we can do the same thing, I think, for the carts.
Yeah, I think that would, with those kinds of proactive
That's huge.
measures, it would take the customer satisfaction metrics that we're looking at, where I think, you know, there weren't a ton of people who are in the very satisfied category, but there are lots of people like, yeah, they're doing a fine job. But like, if my bin, which has been missing a lid for 3 or 4 years, suddenly was replaced, like, I would be like, oh, they did that without me having to make that call that I have been putting off making for 3 or 4 years.
I agree with you. I got 2 so far that are getting lids. I do appreciate the feedback. I completely agree.
And then I think the one thing I'd say is I do think we should, you know, we should go through a competitive bid process. One of the things we talked about from the outset when we were looking at the LEAF program was moving to a leaf collection program whereby we're bagging our leaves. There are more waste haulers who are able to bid. My understanding is the last bid process we had fewer bids than we otherwise might have had because of our leaf collection program, and many smaller waste haulers weren't able to accommodate that program. So I do want us to go to market, see what the options are out there, because that was one of the benefits that we have talked about with our constituents of moving to a bagging leaf program.
Sure. So, yes, so that is an option. I think I wouldn't say that responding to your comment, I wouldn't say that's the sole reason that we were limited, but that was some of the feedback that we heard, that the current bagging model was something that a lot of companies were not interested in participating in. And we did only have, during our last process, 2 bids, which were our current hauler at the time, Waste Management, and LRS. Yeah, I think I hear your comments. And we can, as we prepare that item and we make our recommendation, obviously we'll prepare the alternatives and give the board an understanding of a lot of the trade-offs that are there. So I think, yeah, I hear you.
Thank you.
It was also the composting, right? LRS was able to do more with composting.
Then Waste Management, you mean? No.
I think I'm going back too far in history to before we changed the LEAF program, but go ahead. Corey, you wanted to ask a question?
Yeah. I once again agree with Trustee Straw. It's becoming a habit.
Nice order.
I will add that I am interested in 2 things when it relates to leaves. One, I don't want them back in the street, but I wouldn't mind a parkway system. That sounds like something that could work potentially, maybe in combination with a sort of a parkway / bag / compost system where folks have an option on how they want to get rid of the leaves, and it's kind of like dealer's choice, but ultimately I don't want them in the street, right? That's dangerous. I think we all understand that at this point. Even the people who don't like them, who don't like that they're not in the street, grudgingly tend to agree with me that having big mountains of leaves in the street is not a good look for the village, though they still would rather somebody come and get them. So I like to split that needle and have somebody come get the leaves, but not put them in the street, if we could at all make that happen. I would accept universal composting as that option, absolutely, right? Because leaves are compostable, right? And if we're going to have a service that picks up leaves, maybe it should pick up everything else, right? That's, yeah, that, all of that tech stuff that you guys at LRS that you just mentioned about that you guys don't have, you should get that.
It was so funny because, that story, not to get even more long-winded, but I actually got a chatbot, built it out.
Yeah.
And then created the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then someone pitched it in a meeting using my exact same thing. And I was like, where did you get this? I don't know. Someone created it. I was like, oh, it was me, like a year ago.
Nice.
But anyway.
But you didn't roll out.
No. Afraid of innovation.
Man, I mean, it would just be great if I can just go out, because I have perpetual holes in my lids.
I'm
from
telling
squirrels.
you.
If I could just
Fantastic,
doop and have another one show up, it'd be great. To Trustee Straw's point, that'd be also great if I just showed up one day and then there was a new lid on the can.
Yeah.
That would also be amazing.
Yeah,
right? I'll take either one. I'll take QR codes that redirect me to a website so I can figure out what I can actually put in which bin. I would love that too. Yeah, all of that again, right? Like I agree with Trustee Straw.
Just want to ask, when you say parkway program, you mean you wanted people to just pilot the leaves on their parkway?
And vacuum them up.
The leaf vac.
Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead if you want to comment.
Does that
I'm not
work?
going to say anything. You already got 2 votes to go to bid. You'll have 6 of them after I'm done.
Well, I mean, no, seriously, if it doesn't work, I'll tell
I think the challenge would be is that all the streets would have to be clear from a parking perspective, and also you're
we could do that.
If you're looking at saying in the past a barrier to entry was the leaf pan, this would be even more extreme because you're talking about investing in probably 6 to 7 leaf vac trucks to suck up the leaves in the parkway to be used 4 to 6 week cycle. So it'd be even more challenging to get anyone to bid on the contract at that point. Just my perspective.
Got it. Yeah, appreciate that. But we could definitely get people off
You
the
could
street.
get-
We don't
yeah,
have people
yeah,
on the
yeah,
street
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I just have a few comments. I think that the Public Works has followed the will of the board generally and through the village manager. In past, your predecessor didn't like the change. It wasn't supportive of any changes because the board did not like that. Now we changed the board and now we're enthusiastically pursuing this. I really question the sustainability gains. I do. And I think there are some, but I don't think they're substantial. I think people are driving all around our village picking up bags, going to the village hall or the hardware store. I think that's an issue. I think cost is an issue. Personally, I've been billed, other people, I've got emails, hundreds of dollars extra. We get a $29 rebate, but we're spending, many people, hundreds of dollars on pickups. And, you know, we're already the highest tax community in the state, I think, or very nearly. And now we're having a service. What people perceive it, and I'm not, is the service being taken away? And that's a problem for a lot of people because they've grown accustomed to that. So going back in the day, I looked at the information in the packet, and there was a document in there about the vote back in 2021. I was on the board back then. Vicky was president, of course, President Skaman, and Trustee Enya was on the board. And I voted then to make the change from waste management. There was a cost difference. It was a cost savings is really what it was. I vetted LRS. I called and got names of communities and called those communities and also new residents in those communities. And I was really very thorough. I don't remember all the detail, but I do remember I was very thorough and talked to a lot of people, and they did get a good send-off. LRS was well regarded. And you know, prior to that, I was on the board from 2017, and we had waste management for 4 years. And I have to say that that was a very smooth running operation. We had no complaints, none whatsoever. When we switched, and of course, when you switch anything, you get complaints. I get that. But those complaints really stayed very high, and to this day, we get complaints. I get complaints. I don't know why I get them, but I get a lot of complaints. And with the handling and the garbage and the blowing and the pickup and the lids, and these are things that are consistent, and I would say, so, and again, I appreciate your sincere enthusiasm for your company, and that's really very, very nice, and I appreciate you coming here tonight so late, of course. But I know that LRS is probably maybe 1/30th the size of waste management, and so I do think...
Probably 1/100th.
Well, maybe.
Or 1/1000th, but
well,
yes.
They're giant, I get it, but I also consider capabilities and capacity and ability to make adjustments and seamlessly do things without having to wait for somebody to come and put your cart on the street for a week, where it sits out there in front of your house for a week. Well, the lid doesn't get changed out, and then trying it again the next week. I mean, things like that irk people, and I think that capacity is an important calculation in this. Savings is important. We did forego, we eliminated, we didn't raise rates for a couple of years because there was actually a very big savings at the time. So, then we get into leaf collection, and I don't want to talk too much on it other than to say, when we switched, we eliminated a couple of weeks of pickup, which made those piles bigger. Those piles were bigger at the time. Am I wrong about that?
Well, the reduction from 8 weeks to 6 weeks
Right.
occurred during COVID.
Yes.
Not as a result of the contract.
No, I didn't
And then
say
it was just maintained.
But there was a reduction, and then the piles got bigger. Waste Management was managing it, but then LRS had a habit of the way they handled it was different. They pushed it into the intersections, and they were giant piles in intersections, and that's just the way they did it. And at the time, I complained about it. I said, well, people are complaining that these giant piles, and you talk about safety, well, they're attractive. They're attractive nuisances because there's these big mountains of leaves. And kids were playing in them, and they're in the middle of the intersection. And I think that was so they could get it from a couple different angles to remove the leaves quickly, which I get that, but it made people upset. It led into this whole conversation about, well, maybe this isn't safe, maybe we need to look at it differently, even though we've done it like this for 60, 70, 80 years. And suddenly there was this change. And one other thing, they talk about car fires. We talked about one of the issues was car fires. Well, guess what? I checked. There was a car fire last fall near West Suburban Hospital, or a car, you park a hot car on anything, the leaves, it'll burn. And the leaves, the dry leaves, they caught a car on fire. So it didn't eliminate. We talk about over safety, it didn't change those things. We still are going to have people. We have leaves all over the place. They're going to be more of a chance now for a car to park on that and cause a fire. So long story short is I do feel like at the time I thought I made a good decision. I'm now wondering if I did, really, honestly, and I have to second guess myself because I'm willing as a board member to, when we make mistakes, when I make a mistake, to go back and say, I made a mistake. And it's a sign of a good board to acknowledge the collective outcry when we hear it from our community and say, you know what, even though we did this and this is the way it is, we need to make modifications. We need to look at this. So as we move forward, my only hope is that we consider options, not just options about how we collect the leaves on the parkway, but options as to going back to some kind of a method where they're swept. And I know there's equipment issues because we got rid of our equipment. I don't know why, but we had this equipment, now we don't have it. So now, and it does, you used to tell me it was a sticking point, and that was a good way of saying it. Our contract with the way we pick the leaves, it's a sticking point for people to bid, and it makes it more difficult. I get that, but I also think it was successful. We didn't have complaints. Our lives were normal. We didn't have the streets like we have pictures now of flooding onto the sides and things like that. Those are things we need to address. And my only thing is I think I'm not going to belabor it here, but I just want to say we should consider options, and including looking back to the way we did things, because sometimes the old ways are good ways, and they should be considered and reconsidered. So that's all I have to say.
We'll keep going, and then I'll try to summarize.
Okay. I'll go. I'll be brief. Thanks for coming down. Thanks for sticking around. Yeah, again, as Trustee Taglia said, I appreciate your enthusiasm. Question for you. You said you manage something like 150 municipalities. Do you have a sense offhand, like which ones has the highest rate of composting you've seen?
From a participation perspective,
Yeah, participation. Yeah.
Well,
or whatever stats you have.
like Highland Park has opt-out program.
Oh. So was that another way to just call it universal, or I guess universal
That's
is you
just
can't
the way
opt
that
out?
they want it.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you've got what's the one that we just did? Northbrook is an opt-out as well, so everyone gets a cart, and then you have to return it if you don't want it.
Huh.
We've got about a dozen, maybe 5 or 6 like that up in that area.
Okay.
We've got River Forest, obviously, that has the composting program. You have a composting program. So it's probably like 6 or 7 communities, maybe more, that have it. But
Yeah.
those are the ones that have kind of the most robust program. I think one of the things that just becomes more challenging, and again, however you want to phrase it, when you have an opt-in or opt-out program and it's curbside service at a community that's maybe more focused on curbside collection, not alley.
Yeah.
The labor related to alley service is more expensive, regardless of how you want to slice it, I'm just going to say, because everyone keeps their carts out there, so you got to check every single one. So if you follow our compost driver, he's got to look in the lid of every empty cart that you have. So be very, very mindful, whoever your vendor is. I'm just going to tell you, the biggest concern of mine as a hauler is giving 14,000 carts out to a community where only 6,000 of them use it, and I have to stop at every of those empty carts and look in an empty can, because it's extremely labor intensive and costs a ton of money to do it.
Okay. That's helpful.
Inside the cart,
That's
you
expensive too.
should hang out with someone I know, because another mayor down the road was thinking that should occur, but no, we don't have a weight sensor inside each cart that tells you. So.
That's helpful to know. It's interesting to hear about the different models for it's more of an opt-out.
Which the challenge that is,
Yeah.
if you're going to do something like that, giving us back 5,000 carts or whoever your vendor is also a disaster. Complete disaster, being just blunt.
Sure. Okay.
Talk about making a resident angry about waiting in the driveway to get his cart picked up. Oh, they'll be calling the phones like crazy.
Sure.
So avoid that one if you could.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, but it sounds like there's lots of creative problem solving to be done. So yeah, I mean, I appreciate what you're doing for our village. I think it is the fiscally prudent thing to go out to bid, so that's where I'm at on it. And you guys get a crack at it, so you'll.
Excited to get a new crack at that sucker. I think we saved you $1 million a year last time.
It was pretty significant.
Yeah. So I think, I think as as stewards of such a large contract, it's the prudent thing to do. And it may end up working your way, but also gives us the most options. So that's where I'm at on it. But that's all I have.
I know that when things are said, just registering differing opinions is helpful to staff. I do not want to go back to a on-street leaf collection system. I think that the system we are using now has reduced the volume of leaf waste, and it has tremendously increased the number of people who are either leaving their leaves or mulching their leaves. And I think for previously raised reasons, having the leaves in the streets would have been much, much worse than the situation we are in now, where we're going to be able to, with the street sweepers, get the leaves clean, as we have been doing with the 12-hour street sweeping shifts since we had that freak occurrence of late dropping leaves and early snows that overlapped. So I don't want us to go through a new round of board debates about the leaf system. I don't think it would be a productive use of board time to relitigate something that has already been decided. I mean, I guess I wouldn't be opposed if we wanted to allow vendors through a competitive bid process to tell us how much extra it would cost to have the vacuum trucks, because I think what we would find is that having the vacuum trucks would be a very substantial additional cost and would not, in fact, allow us to have a diverse set of vendors competing for our business if that's the direction we were looking to go. So we could include it as an option to be considered in an open bidding process, but otherwise, I don't think it's a productive conversation for us to go back through again. So I have heard the concerns. I think we all have heard the concerns. I do think that one of the most frequent concerns I'm hearing is our community doesn't look quite as pristine with green lawns in the dead of winter, but that is kind of how nature intended. Like, I'm okay with there being some mulched leaves on lawns. And some people might see that as unsightly. I see that as far better for pollinators.
Okay, I was going to ask for a very quick poll on the willingness to include that in a bid, because if we're directing, because I've heard from at least 3 people, is that they think it's most responsible to go out for bid. So is that, first of all, the consensus? Yes. Okay. And do we want to hear what the cost would be if we were to go backwards on this? No.
Parkway, not street.
Parkway, not street. I was also the other vote to not move forward with the change, that is on record. My vote no at that point in time was also about giving the community more time to learn and understand the need for the change. But I also felt like we had not potentially vetted all of our options in that short window. I don't believe that the Parkway is going to be a viable option. But if it were, that might be nice. I think that the parking on the street would be a challenge everywhere in our community equally, especially in the denser areas where the piles of trees or piles of leaves was also a problem. Hemingway District, Pleasant District, those areas don't have that luxury. So that was a wee bit frustrating for me, just making that also known. So I'm also just trying to give clear direction on what exactly we're looking for. One real quick question. So you said you're fine with the mulching on the ground. Anybody, Erica, Rob, can answer? We get a lot of accusations or complaints that include an accusation that the leaves will ruin their lawns. So is there any evidence that leaving your leaves whole, especially with the way that the temperature dropped so quickly and people didn't have a chance to clean them up and then they were just there, they believe that their lawns are going to be ruined come springtime?
I mean, my expertise is trees, not turf. But I mean, I don't think I've heard anything to that extent. I mean, obviously at some point you're going to need to mow your lawn and mulch those leaves into the surface. So, but over the course of the winter, if there is a layer of leaf matter that's there, no, I don't think there's any immediate impact to the springtime.
Is that? I'm sorry, Derek. Okay, Erica, anything?
Erica's garbage, but
You're garbage.
What do you
okay.
say? If we're taking votes.
Same thing, yeah. A layer of leaf litter on your lawn will kill it.
Okay.
Unless it gets crazy compacted into a huge layer of leaves, it might, leave a brown spot on your lawn. But by springtime, the soil is going to be so healthy, all the nutrients.
That's in a lot of the emails, by the way. I didn't just.
That it
I'm
kills the lawns.
I'm fine. My lawn's fine. Yes, and the pollinators, I do understand the benefit there. I do.
And if you do have a concern and there's an opportunity over the course of the winter to bag those leaves, LRS will pick them up in the alley.
Free of charge.
Free of charge.
Free of charge. All right. How difficult is it to include all options in an RFP? How much would you like us to rein this in?
Well, so I guess I could maybe start with a question. Our intent for this evening's was simply just to have a conversation and get feedback from the board on some of the pain points potentially or desires as we move forward. We were planning to return to the board in March with our recommendation, whether it's go to bid or not, with an understanding that LRS maybe had an opportunity to hear this feedback and maybe make changes to a possible package for a renewal for next year. So, there are pluses and minuses to going to bid that we haven't really talked about tonight, and I don't think now is the appropriate time to do it. We could articulate those in an item later on, but is the will of the board to just move forward with an RFP now, or do you want us to do that additional work and LRS to do that additional work for consideration of a renewal to be presented at a later meeting?
Okay, so before I believe what I heard is the consensus and respond to that question, I just give additional brief feedback. I do want to say I think it's been great to meet you tonight and to have you here and to have, I think, relationships go a long way with addressing customer service, even for us to be able to respond to people ourselves. But it is accurate that we do still get a lot of complaints. It is accurate that we still get complaints of damage in alleys and leakage in alleys. So that's the feedback, and it's not insignificant. So I personally think it's a little challenging to just to start over with new contracts all the time. You know, that to work with LRS to address all of the concerns, highlighting customer service challenges. I would see a benefit there. So I think still for us to understand what that means for you is still beneficial. That being said, what I'm hearing tonight is RFP.
Hold on.
Yeah.
No?
I agree with what you just said.
Okay.
I agree with we do get a lot of complaints, and we do get a lot of complaints about both damage and you know, all manner of things, right? But I agree also about flip-flopping contracts all the time too, right? Like there is a startup cost there, right? And saving $1 million net to our previous contract is not insignificant. So, and then there are considerations that you just mentioned, Rob, that we need to consider when going out to bid. So I would like to know what all those things are before I just, you know, blindly say, let's go to bid, right? So, yeah, I think there's, at this point now, based on your last statement and what you just said, President Skaman, I don't know that I have enough information to say that I want to go to RFP tonight.
Okay, so as long as there's still the opportunity for everybody who's expressing that tonight to give that direction, and then for us to have a little more information before giving that tonight, maybe that makes sense. Yes. Okay.
I'm okay with that, and I'd say I see real benefits to incumbency through the bid process. Like if the cost difference is marginal and the customer service difference is a marginal difference, I would want to not go through the pain of a new transition, especially, you know, we talk about, you know, the swapping out the bins, and we managed to avoid that with the last transition, but not every waste hauler is going to be comfortable with accommodating prior bins. And so there are a lot of considerations. Even if we go to RFP, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to go with the lowest cost bid. I think especially in a service like this, which is in some ways one of the greatest faces of the municipality with our constituents. And that sounds like a weird thing to say, but our trash cans and recycling bins and compost bins are one of the most visible things that our constituents see that we do. Yeah. And so not having a bunch of upheaval there has some real benefit.
Jim.
You're right, Brian, and a lot of people do see that, and a lot of people are unhappy. And to ignore that, yeah, I would just say this one, a couple of things. Number one, I wasn't on the board when that decision was made about the leaf collection. I would have voted no, obviously. And I think it's a mistake to stifle and to not even consider that. I think that is almost, I just don't think it's appropriate. I think we need to consider all options and let the chips fall where they may. It's going to cost more, I get that. And people are going to have to buy equipment, and it may be difficult. I understand that. But it should be considered. And to say, no, we're going to do all these other things, but we're not going to consider this is I don't think it's warranted. And the last thing I'll say is anytime we have a multi-million-dollar contract, and 5 years, how long has this contract been? 5 years? So these questions aren't new. These things have been raised. We've discussed these things. We get complaints. We pass them on. I know people call. So this, I mean, I know it's not the first time you've heard these things. So after 5 years is a little bit, I'm not saying it's late, but it's better late than never. But we'd like to see some, maybe, and I know Rob works very hard with LRS. I know that, and he puts a lot of effort into it. I appreciate that, as does Public Works generally. But anytime we have a multi-million-dollar contract, it should automatically go out for bid. There shouldn't even be much of a discussion other than to say we're going to do it, because in my business, we bid out everything, and the lowest cost guy wins, and everyone else goes home. And that's what we do.
So if I could just a couple points real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, just for frame of reference, because there's a lot of new people on the board. The waste hauler previous to LRS, Waste Management, was in the community for 25 years without bidding. So when we talk about, so when we compare what was existing in, 2017, that was with a company that had been in place, working within the community for well over 20 years at that point. And so I agree that 5 years, is a significant amount of time, and there's been some significant change that's occurred over that time period. And I won't say that there aren't issues with LRS, but there were issues with Waste Management. And we had complaints, and we had broken can lids and damage that occurred. And we have the data to support both historically that the number of complaints that we get is very similar to our previous contractor. Now, we may have some complainants that are more vocal, but I think also what we bore out through our waste characterization study is we interviewed 1,000 people, and over 88% of them said they are happy with the service that they currently have. Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't be striving for 100%, but the idea that the level of service that we're getting now is significantly different to what we were getting with Waste Management, I think is an exaggeration.
Well, you were at CERB, though, at the time.
I mean, I've been here since 2014.
You were in the forestry division, though.
And,
Yeah.
Yep, but I managed the environmental services division for a year as well with Waste Management. And they're a great company. I'm not trying to disparage them, but at the time you guys voted for it, Waste Management was looking for a 33% increase in their costs as part of that bidding process. LRS actually came in below them. And as you mentioned, that allowed the village to maintain the cost of services for 4 out of the last 6 years. There was no cost increase associated with that. So, that is significant for the residents as well. So,
Village Manager Jackson, you've been trying to insert.
That's okay. I think some of the points came out, but I did just want to concisely kind of suggest in response, Trustee Taglia, to the 5-year contract. We are, give credit to staff. We've been talking about this for the last probably year. And so it's not by happenstance that we're here in January of 2026, because we want to get started early, and we want to start responsibly, collect the feedback, come back with a more detailed study session with some analysis of the alternatives so that you understand the trade-offs between the various options before you make a judgment. But the other point is saying it a different way than the way Rob just described is from a policy standpoint in the future, if you're looking at 5-year contracts with options, I mean, the board could decide we don't want options anymore. Like, I think, we're okay with a 5-year term. That's probably long enough, gives us an opportunity to evaluate, but no options. Because I think tonight, really, if there were no options, then we would not be considering whether or not we should exercise the renewal options. You see what I mean? I think it would be automatically going to a purchasing process because there wouldn't be any options to avail ourselves of. And I think what the staff has done over the last several years is they have been actually monitoring the data on the complaints, and they have gone down. There have been some resolution to the issues, and yes, there's still complaints, but what Rob is speaking to is just an intentionality around just monitoring the metrics around the complaints from one contract to another. And so I think that's what you're hearing. But I think having the options there for us to consider is why we're here today. Otherwise, we would be getting ready for a procurement process prior to taking a stop with you to see if you want to exercise the options.
Except leaf collection like we used to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know why
that's another variable.
We're just cutting that out. I just don't. Again, I always follow the will of the board. However, I think it's a mistake not to consider what we've heard consistently from so many people. Maybe they're not the majority, but we've got to listen and evaluate and weigh it, and that would come in the form of an RFP that would include that. But if you don't want to do that, so be it.
Okay, I think it's the most responsible thing to be out of here by 11 p.m. So,
Well,
would be great if we can get a chart of those complaints over time. So when people tell me that the service is so much worse than it used to be, I can show them the chart and say it's not. That would be really, really helpful. That's all I got.
I think the perception of changing from human bodies to an arm is in itself enough to make people feel like it's worse.
Yeah, that's why the chart helps.
And so I think he's right. I think, and I believe without any doubt that it has been a steady. On everything, missed pickups have always happened. Damage has always happened. Leakage has always happened. Lids breaking has always happened. All these things have always happened. So I think that's right.
You know what we have now that we didn't have back then? Social media.
Okay, so,
I thought you were gonna say an electric truck.
That too. But it does make everything louder.
okay, and just because this is still just a discussion, you're gonna come back to us
Yes.
with, a tad bit more information.
Yes.
I wonder if it doesn't, it was used against me before when I said the will of the board seems to be that there isn't enough votes to, at this point, go backwards to a leaf pickup, But that's me not saying where I stand alone. That's the will of the board. And that's the situation that Jim is at. And it is my job to say that so that we don't have staff going in multiple directions and wasting time. It does a little bit help me to, and the community maybe to, like you see a chart that tells you what the reality is, to have the comparisons of the cost to then get, some of that, what could have been a little more time for people to adjust to a change. It gives it that in writing, in black and white again, to see, okay, this is the reality. So maybe it's still okay to at least understand what going back to leaf pickup in the street would look like. Okay. And we have call to board, and I love you all. It's Happy New Year. But if we can keep it brief, that would be fantastic. I had like 15 things I was going to say, but I'm waiting till next week. Clerk Waters.
So I know I usually pass, however, just want to note that statement of economic interest and ethic filings for the Village of Oak Park are all going to be underway, so keep an eye out for those. Early voting is 48 days away, so it's really important to start to talk to the community and let folks know they can early vote here at Village Hall starting March 2nd, and that includes March 2nd through March 16th, and that's including weekends. Also, when we're talking to our constituents, make sure to have that conversation about postmarking. Mail ballots are absolutely a thing, right? People travel, they want to get their mail ballots to the addresses that they're traveling to. We had 3 or 4 people stop in today. But it's going to be important that you make that note that the United States Postal Service did modernize their postmarking. The biggest change being that the postmark date is no longer guaranteed to match the date an item is mailed. So mail earlier than the deadline, as the postmark date is no longer a reliable timestamp, and just also know that the secure drop box will be available at Village Hall.
Happy New Year. Pass.
When in the course of human events, I pass.
Thank you for all the presentations tonight, and Happy New Year.
Pass. Happy New Year. Pass.
Okay, I will point out that we did lose Wynetta Johnson over the holiday break, and she was a longtime president of Apple at Oak Park River Forest High School. There will be celebration of life at the 19th Century Club on January 24th, starting at 3 p.m. Village Board will host a proclamation in her memory before that, or actually just following, be at the wishes of the family And so I think it's open to the community at large. If you didn't know her, she was a great activist, really important to our, championing the needs of our young people. And just, racial equity and much, much more. Go ahead.
I just want to note also, in addition to the loss of Ms. Johnson, we also lost Mr. Ernie, which may not be as familiar of a name here in Oak Park, but the amount of lives that he impacted here is astounding. He actually started the Maywood Fine Arts Center, and so the tumbling program there, and it's actually a tumbling program that Vivian is in now. So we had just met him for the first time at the last show, and then he passed away just a couple weeks later. But Mr. Ernie has been in the community for decades, probably about just as long as Ms. Johnson has. So I just want to make sure we note that as well.
We also lost Bishop Dr. Claude Porter, who was with PLCCA in Maywood. So we, just sorry for all of those very significant losses to our Black community. And I was, no, I know it's not fair. It's my prerogative. No, I'm not going to read this, but on, we often do proclamations for people who have made a significant impact in our community. And, Mary Ann Brown was somebody who was the executive director of Hepzibah for 40 years. We lost her in 2025 as well. We'll look for an appropriate time to work with the family on an anniversary of her passing to honor her. But it was 1 year ago today that we lost my mother-in-law, who received a proclamation from both the House and the Senate. And we did not do one here, but we could potentially do one on an anniversary, or I could just read one of them for you on another day. But she was too much to say, the first woman elected to the Triton Board. She ran for delegate, and we'll just reserve. But Happy New Year, all. And her name was Frances Sullivan. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.